Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon. It's good to see you all here again in good numbers as well. We see. Welcome to the SIEW TechTable. This time, the TechTable hosted by Energy Market Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme for today's TechTable is transforming energy tomorrow, scaling solutions today. This program aims to bridge the gap between innovation and implementation, creating actionable frameworks to realize tomorrow energy's systems while advancing concrete solutions. To start today's program, we invite up on stage the Assistant Chief Executive, Energy Technologies Division from the Energy Market Authority to deliver his welcome remarks. Please welcome on stage Mr. Loh Sin Wei.
Good afternoon, distinguished speakers, partners, and guests. On behalf of the Market Authority of Singapore, it's my pleasure to welcome you to SIEW TechTable 2025. The theme today is Transforming Energy Tomorrow, Scaling Solutions Today. So we're meeting at a time of great global political uncertainty. I mean, this morning, even our key evangelist, Bill Gates, cast some doubts about climate ambitions. And when jobs and supply chain security is at stake, it's not unreasonable to see climate action take a back seat, especially when a lot of people perceive that as tomorrow's problem. Despite these headwinds, the global clean energy sector is making good progress. In 2024, renewable energy capacity grew by more than 15%, reaching 4,000 gigawatt, driven largely by solar and wind, according to the IRENA. And this year, according to the World Energy Investment Report, total investments across renewables, nuclear, grids, low-emission fuels, etc., are projected to hit $2.2 trillion, reflecting strong momentum from both governments and private investors. And in Asia, we are benefiting from the fruits of these investments. Technologies like wind, PV, BESS, and electric vehicles are now mature and mainstream. Wind and solar generation capacity in China surged to 1,482 gigawatts, exceeding fossil fuel-based thermal power capacity for the first time in March this year. Even in Southeast Asia, a number of countries such as Thailand and Cambodia, we are seeing renewable energy costs comparable or lower than that of coal-generated electricity. We are also seeing ambitions among Asian countries in the adoption of newer emerging technologies, with plans to pilot and develop advanced geothermal, hydrogen and its derivatives, and next-generation nuclear reactors. So what does this mean for Singapore's energy transition? Singapore is fully committed to reach net zero by 2050, but we must do so in a way that keeps energy affordable, reliable, and resilient for our people. To paraphrase my minister, Dr. Tan See Leng, who has made this point repeatedly over the last few days, decarbonization will come with costs, but cannot and will not be at all costs. And 2050 is just 25 years away. I met some college friends, at this sitting and remarked that, we were in college 25 years ago and we're now seeing the prospects of, the next 25 years, to have to reach net zero. So that's to me, something that's quite pressing. And for Singapore, standing here in 2025, this means that it is time to overcome initial barriers and move decisively on energy technologies that have entered the mainstream globally. And this would be our approach for proven technologies such as solar, energy storage, and low-carbon electricity imports. Our solar strategy gives a sense of what I mean by moving decisively. Around the end of last decade, which is 5 years ago, it became clear that solar had reached price parity with conventional gas-fired CCGTs. And Singapore's approach to solar deployment was to act as a catalyst in its initial phase. We needed to make it worth its while for the solar industry to take root here. We mobilized all available public rooftops, including government buildings like schools and public housings where 80% of Singaporeans live. It was a move that allowed us to be able to scale up quickly and clearly signal our national intent on solar so that companies can marshal their resources accordingly. I met at a roundtable at lunch, all the major solar providers, and said, actually, you are growing on a per year basis, 300, 400 megawatt peak what we had in its entirety up to the year 2020. And that effort paid off because between 2020 and now, we've quadrupled our solar capacity and will cross 1.7 gigawatt peak quite easily before the end of this year. But we're fast running out of public rooftops, as much as you see, high-rise buildings here in Singapore. But our ambitions to maximize solar deployment in Singapore remains. We aim to expand across more public surfaces, private rooftops, and unconventional areas such as reservoirs, and even explore the potential of structural PV and solar canopies. This next phase would be a test of our readiness to innovate, adapt, and push the boundaries of what's possible for solar deployment, not just for Singapore, but in the region and globally at large. Electricity imports are the next obvious mature sources. Singapore may be land scarce, but we sit in the center of a region, Southeast Asia, with over 20 terawatts of untapped solar and wind. There are islands south of Singapore, 40 to 100 kilometers away. Some of you who go up to the roof of MBS and look southwards, away from the pool, you'll be able to see some islands in the distance past that vast armada of ships. Islands south of Singapore, some of them Singaporean islands, some of them Indonesian islands, provide approximately 4 gigawatt, perhaps more, of best firm solar. And if such resources existed in, say, Auckland, it would already have been wired to Cupertino or Palo Alto. But because these lie across international boundaries, so there are real complexities such as regulatory and infrastructural coordination before these sources can be unlocked. That being said, we're moving strong in this area with conditional approvals and conditional licenses awarded to around 8.3 gigawatts of capacity in total, just for imports of low-carbon electricity into Singapore. Looking into the next bound, that's where I guess the SIEW TechTable team of technology comes to play. We have to start opening up options for all relevant energy pathways that make sense for us, such that when these technologies are mature and the price is right, Singapore will be able to move fast to get them scaled up. This does not mean that we are placing bet on every single technology. Instead, we are carefully accessing, testing, and building expertise in the most promising options. This would be our approach for the next generation of technologies such as hydrogen, ammonia, advanced geothermal, and advanced nuclear. Hydrogen stands out as a potential scalable pathway with a number of technological, a lot of carrier types that's able to bring hydrogen onto our shores. Liquid-based systems, metal oxide frameworks, this just got a Nobel Prize this year, all at different stages of maturity. And despite existing engineering and cost challenges, I actually remain quite hopeful in its long-term prospects, as hydrogen produced from renewable sources ultimately is a manufactured product and not something we extract from the soil or the earth. And it's made with the same technologies that follow steep cost reduction learning curves, just as we've seen in PV panels and batteries that allow their cost to be able to come down dramatically once a certain level of scale and volume is being reached. And we are willing to invest in readying ourselves to move fast, when hydrogen comes at an affordable price. All new combined cycle gas turbines, CCGTs in Singapore, are now required to be hydrogen ready. And among the different hydrogen carriers, ammonia has a very established supply chain, and we plan to get a Pathfinder project started to supply low-carbon ammonia for maritime bunkering and power generation through direct combustion. Earlier this month, we appointed a consortium led by Keppel to take the lead for a pilot, and if the pilot does proceed, it will very likely be the first of its kind for large-scale direct combustion of ammonia in a gas turbine. Turning to geothermal, it might sound a bit unnatural for Singapore, you see how small it is, who does not have accessible reservoirs of hot water or steam, to go for conventional hydrothermal systems. But we might be sitting on hot but dry rocks that could be tapped on by advanced geothermal technology, such as enhanced or closed-loop geothermal systems. Notwithstanding that these technologies are still not fully commercially available, we are studying them closely. In parallel, we're also assessing the suitability of our geological conditions and understand implications of large-scale geothermal extraction amid our dense urban environment. Our approach towards geothermal remains measured, but once the technology demonstrates feasibility and safety for Singapore, we must be ready to act decisively. On nuclear energy, I think we're seeing a renaissance unfold. Over 30 countries are now expanding or embracing their nuclear programs. Tech giants, to to secure long-term carbon-free energy are placing firm orders for next-generation advanced or small nuclear reactors, or SMRs, that promise faster, safer, and more flexible deployment. In particular, many of these small modular reactors are moving from concept to implementation. The OECD Nuclear Energy Agency has identified 127 SMRs designed globally, nearly half of which are being reviewed by regulators for potential deployment. Some of these reactors are slated to start producing power on a commercial basis within this decade. Singapore is building the technical and regulatory capabilities to objectively and scientifically assess whether the advanced nuclear technologies and small nuclear reactors could be safely and effectively deployed here. We will also continue to strengthen our nuclear safety and radiation protection competencies to prepare for potential nuclear power deployment in the region. There are also many other energy pathways that we are considering. Our mantra in Singapore with regards to new energy technology is that nothing is off the table, and we will always be on the hunt for all kinds of low-carbon energy to continue to keep our options open. What's important for us is that we must pursue a diversified portfolio of sustainable energy pathways to build the future we envision. And it's very unlikely that any one single solution would suffice, just as there's no one-size-fits-all solution to decarbonization. Some will also fall by the wayside due to cost, safety, or scalability issues. We will hear from the speakers at this tech table on the promise and challenges of the leading energy pathways. Without further ado, I look forward to learning from the engaging discussions ahead. My sincere thanks to all our moderators who flew down or stayed on, for this, and speakers as well who flew very long distances just for this, and to 3M and Princeton Digital for sponsoring these sessions. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much, Sin Wei, for opening the tech table. Thank you so much. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, our first presentation on enhancing energy grid stability and reliability. This is presented by 3M. Let's welcome on stage Andy People, Vice President R&D Electrical Markets Division, 3M, for this presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andy People. I am the Vice President of R&D for 3M's Electrical Markets Division. I lead our global innovation and product development efforts to drive growth and technology advancement in partnership with our customers. 3M's Electrical Markets serves a diverse range of customers, including utilities, electrical contractors, industrial manufacturers. We provide solutions that enhance electrical safety, efficiency, and reliability across global markets. It's been an important theme throughout these last few days, but Asia's electricity consumption is really set to more than double in 10 years, with the region's demand already accounting for nearly half of the total global energy demand. The immense demand for AI technology is placing new strains on the region's power grid, creating a critical need for speed to market with the latest technologies, advanced grid resilience, smart grid optimization, and enhanced grid reliability. As countries across Asia invest in renewable energy to meet their climate goals, their power grids need to become more efficient and resilient. Many regions in Asia continue to face challenges, like the integration of renewables. This can also increase the risk of outages from cyber attacks, extreme weather, or equipment failure. And we also know that utilities require real-time data to effectively try to manage energy distribution and advanced technologies for grid resilience and reliability, but also factoring in the emergence of smart grid optimization. One of the challenges that we face is unplanned outages, and this can lead to significant financial and reputational impacts. It can also lead to environmental impacts, such as unexpected leaks and emissions, It also can contribute disruptions to businesses, households, and government operations. Our goal is really to provide solutions that minimize downtime and limit interruptions, and really maintain constant power distribution across these critical systems. So let me just take a minute or two and talk a little bit about who we are at 3M. And so at our core, we're really a materials science company that innovates and creates solutions that empower our modern life. We acquired our first patent in 1924. Today, we have a total of more than 21,000 active patents, not only product patents, but also manufacturing, because not only do we invent, but we also manufacture things. Our impact really spans across different markets, and we are in many of the products and applications that you use every day. As an example, what you all have with you, we provide a lot of the critical components that are inside your smartphones, making them stronger, lighter, and more durable. And while we continue to innovate across industries, we're also scaling up in priority markets that require cutting-edge solutions, including energy, data centers, semiconductors, aerospace, automotive, electronics, industrial automation, and safety. Overall, as a company, 3M is really intensifying our commitment to the energy economy and energy security. We're using cutting-edge material science to advance energy generation, transmission, distribution, and consumption, including solutions for industrial decarbonization, energy efficiency for data centers, sustainable infrastructure, and more. Increased energy demands, like what we are seeing here in Asia, really require innovation. And 3M is uniquely positioned to deliver a comprehensive portfolio of solutions that help to enhance safety, drive productivity, reduce cost, increase efficiencies, and really ensure grid stability. So I'd like to take a few minutes and dive into a few different ways that you can all do this with us today. So the Asia-Pacific region is really predicted to more than double its data center capacity over the next 5 years, driven by demand for AI and cloud computing. Data centers and cloud infrastructure are really critical economic drivers that demand 100% uptime and really highly reliable power connections. One of the ways that we as a company work to try to deliver risk mitigation is through our advanced electrical technologies, really tailored for these high-performance environments. We've been in this industry and in this business for over 70 years. We started with tape, evolved into splices and terminations, leveraging a lot of our material science to help assure both ease of installation and reliability. We believe that the connection to the grid is really the heart and foundation of the data center. It's the fuel that runs it. And where many times things can fail is at these cable connections and splices. So 3M's cold shrink technology offers a reliable, easy-to-install solution that reduces installation time and also enhances the long-term reliability and durability. We can install these in less than 1/3 the time as kind of conventional heat shrink technology, and it's a safe, reliable, rapid deployment technology that we invented. It also forms kind of a permanent moisture-proof seal and prevents contamination and failures in the field. I'm going to pivot to the next here a little bit. And one of the things that we see is that Asia is definitely a high-growth global manufacturing hub. And the high energy consumption that you see here really means that it's sensitive to different disruptions in power. The total economic cost of power sector inefficiencies and outages can be immense. In South Asia, the cost of power disruptions is estimated at 4 to 7% of the annual GDP. 3M's advanced transmission technologies are strengthening grid reliability and resilience around the world, including the Asia-Pacific region. 3M's aluminum conductor composite reinforced is a high-temperature, low-sag overhead conductor that can carry more electricity with less thermal expansion, dramatically increasing grid capacity and stability. Utilities can upgrade their aging power lines with our 3M ACCR technology to transmit greater power loads without having the need to construct new towers or expanding their right-of-way. This innovation also reduces the risk of outages by preventing line sag and failures, even under extreme weather or heavy demand, helping to ensure a more reliable supply of energy to our communities. Switching over to our third area, I want to talk a little bit about our foray into the sensing space and the smart grid space. So Asia Pacific is really projected to be the fastest growing region worldwide for smart grid expansion, with regional governments and utilities rapidly prioritizing their investments in smart grid technologies. These investments are expected to double through 2030. We at 3M are really offering real-time monitoring solutions that help to provide and bring intelligence to the power distribution networks. Our 3M sensor cable accessories really integrate high accuracy voltage and current sensors directly into standard grid components, like cable terminations, providing really live data on electrical network performance. These innovations allow utilities to detect faults, reduce downtime and energy losses, and also optimize their power flow and perform predictive maintenance to really fix issues that crop up before outages happen. The other is this helps to empower our customers and utilities with better data and more information, and this data gives them control not only to help minimize disruptions, but also enhance their overall resilience, which is crucial for a more dynamic and sustainable electricity system. So 3M, our goal is really to be your reliable partner through every phase of your project. We have over 50 years of expertise, within this space. We deliver reliable, easy-to-install electrical solutions with advanced health monitoring, empowering Asia's energy future amidst its future growth and rapid growth in electricity consumption. And with that, I would encourage you, you can scan the QR code if you'd like to find out more or be able to reach out to us. But really, our goal is to work together to create a better, smarter, and safer future. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Andy. We invite you to take a seat right there on stage. And of course, joining Andy on stage, ladies and gentlemen, is our moderator, Claire Perry O'Neill, former Minister for Energy and Clean Growth of the United Kingdom.
Andy, thank you so much. I know you and I were joking beforehand that we always think of 3M as Post-its. Still a great product. Incredible to see the extraordinary technical array that your group is now delivering around the world. I wanted to draw out a couple of themes, if I could, from the presentation. I think one of the things we hear very strongly, and you started with this, is this ongoing demand, demand underlying in Asia, given the demographic changes and development, of course, now spiked by the conversations around data centers. We're going to explore that in the next panel. You head up a global group. Do you treat Asia differently in your thinking or your resource allocation?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say we kind of take an approach in terms of really trying to understand the trends that we see within our different areas. We try to marry that up as we think about globally where we want to drive technology and technology advancement. But at the same point, kind of with an eye towards trying to customize solutions specifically for the area needs. But at the same point, we want to be able to take advantage of scale and our capabilities. But as a global company, we certainly work to invest heavily in a lot of the different specific areas, whether it's with R&D, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's with our support organizations and that. But we certainly see Asia as a very important space.
And a growth space, presumably
for
for you. Although, again, something that struck me from your presentation was the importance of retrofit. And
Yes.
coming where I do from the kind of old world where we are wrestling with retrofit challenges and adding on demand to existing energy systems, there's still plenty of opportunity for you, I would imagine, in those regions too.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that as we look at just in terms of the retrofit itself, as well as new installations, I mean, we really want to be engaged and support, in both of those areas.
The second thing that jumped out at me, and again, it's a broader conversation, we often talk about reliability of supply, and indeed our opening speaker referenced this, what was it, everything, everywhere, all at once approach that Singapore takes, something like that, to ensure that there is a reliable energy supply. But you referenced reliability of transmission and demand. Could you say a little bit about that? Because I know from my own ministerial experience, we don't always talk about reliability when you're actually trying to draw down the electrons.
It is. It's one of the things that we're pretty passionate about as a company. I think one of the things that we found is a lot of times the issues that you can have, say, with a data center or with a connection to the grid is at the splices, the terminations, and these points. It's been our experience that you can have failures of up to 25% within that, which can be pretty catastrophic for that.
At the customer side.
At the customer side. And so our intent is really to provide solutions that minimize that. And we're exploring things that help to automate the process as you think about the front end for preparing it, as well as having products and leveraging our material science around solutions that help to ensure that those products, once they're put in place, are robust and reliable throughout the lifetime.
And is there a particular product in the product set that everybody should be aware of? Is there some digital solution, or what should everybody know today when they leave about the one thing they could do when they're looking at your product set?
I think for us, it really starts, we try to work with our customers kind of throughout the whole ecosystem, helping support in the beginning in terms of their planning process, and things within that, making sure that they have the right products and that available to them. We have solutions that help them track where their assets are so that they know and have that information. We then want to have reliable products that help within the splicing and terminations as we think about that. But then also, as I mentioned, we're also exploring and putting a lot of research into the sensing and the asset health piece. So as you think about how you then monitor that and understand if you may have potential disruptions or actions that you need to take over the lifetime. And then if you do get to the end where you do have the need to be able to repair or fix an asset, you can go back to those products around from a locating perspective to help identify it efficiently. So we kind of think about it in kind of a whole ecosystem within that.
Fantastic. And then on the ecosystem question, I think, again, we referenced Bill Gates in the starting comments. So I was very involved in COP26. I've stayed very involved in the sustainability world ever since. But like Mr. Gates, comparing myself to Mr. Gates, how ridiculous. But I think there is a view emerging now that we're in a new age of climate realism, where, yes, we have the impact of climate change, but we're also starting to see the cost constraints, some of the technological constraints, certainly some of the political instability that has challenged a lot of the thinking. What's happening with 3M, both in terms of your business planning and also your own company? Are you in a new age of realism? Has anything changed for you?
I think, one of the things I would say from the R&D side is we always try to look out towards the future. So whether we're thinking about things in the next 3 years, in the next 10 years, we try to keep our eye around what we think are going to be the long-term sustainable trends. I think, one of the earlier comments is if you think about energy and a lot of our energy systems today, it's really a portfolio. It's a mix. You have things that are emerging You have legacy. You also have things that are starting to become to the forefront, such as the discussions around nuclear that are kind of taking a reemergence. So from our perspective, we really want to be engaged and supportive in all those different areas. And we see that diversity as being something that is just part of the normal day-to-day, and we try to align with that.
And as I think, your chart showed, whatever we're plugging in on the supply side, distribution and demand remains an efficiency challenge.
It does.
And that plays into your product set.
Absolutely.
Great. So looking through the noise to the medium term.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for really educating us. Great to see you. And thanks for traveling all the way from St. Paul, Minnesota. You had a long journey. Great to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Claire, for this session on stage. We'll now proceed for our next session, Empowering the Digital Future, aligning data center growth with Asia Pacific's energy transition. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is presented by Princeton Digital Group. Allow me to take a moment to introduce who the panelists are. They are Varun Raghavan, co-founder and chief executive officer, Princeton Digital Group, PDG. Izumi Kai, CEO, Jera Asia. Datuk Kamal Arifin bin Rahman, Chief Retail Officer, Tenaga Nasional Berhad. Like to invite all of them up on stage, and together with them again is Claire, a moderator.
Thank you again. Well, you're getting your money's worth in this 1 hour session because we're packing in a huge amount of knowledge and expertise. And this panel today, I think, really helps us understand these demands that we're seeing for energy, which were high enough before we started the conversation about AI and what that does. So I think, as we heard about, we've got a representative from Princeton Data Centers, from TMB, and from Jera Group, so a really good take on the ecosystem here. So I'm going to start with some specific questions, and then we'll do a bit of rapid fire. So Varun, you've been in the kind of vanguard of the data center business well before we started to see the AI hype and valuations. What's different now for you in terms of the ecosystem and in terms of your company's strategy?
Thanks, Claire. Great to be here, and appreciate the question. Makes me feel old, but it's okay.
We're old in tech terms,
That's
Varun. We're older than 22.
It is true. So the one thing that we are seeing that's quite different now than before is the amplitude of capacity growth, particularly across multiple markets and regions. So we've seen data center capacity growth happen in multiple waves over the last, I would say, 20 years. Starting with the internet, then the cloud and mobile, and the internet, cloud, and mobile all coming together. Now, particularly with AI, what we're seeing is that is an accelerant for growth across all of these different drivers. So you're using more internet, more cloud, more mobile because of AI, and that's kind of driving your usage. And
So it's a feedback loop, driving it up
absolutely.
onwards.
It's a feedback loop, it's a virtuous cycle, and all of that is meaning that there is growth happening across multiple dimensions and multiple markets. So that amplitude and speed of growth that we are seeing now is new, both in terms of the scale, so the degree, but also in terms of the quantum of what we are seeing at this point of time.
And what are the constraints on that growth? I mean, I spend a lot of time in the US, where I sit on another board, where some of the solutions being proposed that we're just going to have point source, 24/7, combination energy supplies for data centers. Is that happening here? And if not, what are some of the constraints to actually your build-out strategy?
So we've been somewhat lucky that we've got a chance to see what's happening in the US and learn from it and prepare. We don't have a lot of time, but we are getting a bit of time. So we're not seeing exactly the same kind of point gigawatt scale projects in Asia yet that we are seeing in Texas and other places in the US. But what we are seeing in Asia at this point of time is that as hyperscalers, the big technology companies that underpin the technology of the world, as they are expanding their infrastructure across various markets, they set up these regions which are availability zones. And each of these availability zones, we're seeing significant growth happen. So the good news is that a lot of this growth is prefigured. We know where that was going to be, and we're seeing that. There are a few markets in Asia, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, as we go through the session, where we are seeing that growth happen even more than others. But in general, that's the kind of growth that we're seeing now. That is not to say that we won't see the same kind of situations that you mentioned in the US and Asia. I expect that to happen soon, but we've just had a little bit of time to prepare as a region for that to happen.
Great. So you're learning from some of the hyperscalers' successes and mistakes. Kai, can I come to you? You're the head of you're CEO Jera Asia, as I understand. Tell me a bit about the supply, and how you're actually building out and developing to try and meet some of these demands.
So currently in Asia, like Japan, India, Singapore, basically roughly 2/3 of operating data centers are basically hosted. But going forward, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, so these emerging countries increasing data center development, AI development, supported by the unique schemes like a green tariff or corporate renewables supply scheme, etc. So with such supportive scheme and also available access to the grid, sufficient grid capacity, etc., I think supply also can be developed because it's considered an attractive market. So now we are seeing, for example, in Johor, we are clearly seeing kind of spillover effect from Singapore because of the limited land availability, access to additional capacity, etc. So therefore, from developers' power supply perspective, such country or regions where available access to the infrastructure, so that is quite attractive.
Very good. And Detek, you're here with your Malaysian flag on, I'm sure, even if you are wearing. Tell us a bit about Malaysia's approach to this. You're the largest utility. You're taking a very pragmatic approach, and you're also very keen to host a lot of these new data centers.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me give a little bit context where Tenaga is coming from. We are the vertically integrated utility. We have about 28,000 megawatt in terms of our capacity, where about 50% is owned by Tenaga Nasional. We run about 30,000 kilometers in terms of grid and about 700 over kilometer, 1,000 kilometers regards to distribution network grid line. And we serve about 10.5 million customers. So we have what you call just now the speaker before talk about reliability, where our SIEW from Malaysia is about 15 minutes, and of course in the centers, city centers like Kuala Lumpur and Johor, it's less than 10 minutes in terms of the SIEW. And our system minute is less than 1 minute. So basically, we have enough capacity with regards to the influx of data center. When we started in 2023, Johor and Kuala Lumpur was not even in the map of the data center. Right now,
2023?
2023, yeah.
Just 2 years ago.
Just 2 years ago. Now, Johor and Kuala Lumpur, we run about 1.4 gig in terms of demand, and demand is growing up to about 6 gig in the pipeline, about 4 more gig coming into the pipeline. So how do we approach this, and where is actually is coming from? Number one is our good infrastructure with regards to the capacity that we run in terms of generation capacity. And number two, we have what they call the strong grid that we have in terms of our energy transition. The 3 words with regards to energy transition is grid, grid, and grid. So basically, the government allows Tenaga Nasional to enhance and build a more robust, resilient in terms of grid. Therefore, for our regulatory period for the next 3 years, we are getting about double in terms of our budget or capex that is allowed for us to expand our grid to make sure that all the data centers is coming in. And of course, it would not be going this good without the government support. We have all the 3 ministers, Petra, which is our energy minister, and then we have the investment minister, MITI, as well as the digital minister. And these 2 ministers chair what we call the data center task force, making sure that the investment, the infrastructure is done, planned holistically, not just looking at the energy, but also water as well as the connectivity. So basically, for Tenaga Nasional, we are actually supporting the National Energy Transition Roadmap as well as making sure that we have enough, not just the power, but also the green power that we we're going to put in the system.
I like the grid. There's also a famous phrase which I've stolen from somebody else, but I use it all the time, which is that there is no transition without transmission. And I have a view, having been a politician myself, that politicians have only just kind of woken up to the fact that you can try and commission as many green electrons as you like, but the challenge is actually distributing them, maintaining a stable grid, and not losing too much on the demand side, as we heard from Andy. How does the government balance that? If you were a fly on the wall of those ministerial conversations, you're trying to balance reliability, cost, decarbonisation, provision of additional capacity. How does that conversation work?
I think this is the issues or the challenges that all utilities in the world face, how to balance the trilemma, how to make sure that we give a reliable and secure, affordable, as well as sustainable. Well, going into the world where the customers are moving towards more green. So I guess policies with regards to what's happening on the ground. For example, now our government, under the National Energy Transition Roadmap that we started in 2023, that was launched by the government. And this is where we see a lot more influx of data center coming into the country, right? So in 2023 and onwards, the policy with regards to, we have this what they call CRESS, which is the corporate renewable energy system. And then we have also policy with regards to corporate, what do you call this, green energy program. And at the same time, our LSS, large-scale solar, which is already now on the 6th plan. We have now LS 6, which is all geared towards supporting, giving a green energy to data centers, which requires what they call this huge amount of energy. On top of that, we have also now currently the government policy with regards to green energy tariff, which allows the customers to take green energy directly from the source. We have about 6,600 gigawatt hour in terms of green energy tariff that we can provide to the requirement of data centers. So basically, this is what we are looking at, not just balancing the current utility supply with regards to the fuel on the normal fuel, gas, coal, and all that, but more moving towards the target of 70% of RE coming in 2050. Yeah.
Kai, let's talk a bit about the supply of the electrons, because Japan has always been a great pragmatist, I think, in its energy transition. What do you see as, what's new about the approach in this region? What are the conversations you're having around the forms of electrons that you want to deliver into some of these grid projects?
Yeah. So first of all, the JERA is basically focusing on thermal power generation as well as renewable power generation. Yep. Since we in Japan supply approximately 30% of total Japan's demand, but we have a clear goal of net zero target by 2050, which was set 5 years ago, October 2020. And how we can achieve this is because of, as you can understand, intermittency issues, we really need to make sure the stable, reliable electricity supply while pursuing lowering emissions gradually in a responsible manner. So our approach is to lower, for example, coal-fired power generation. Instead of replacing immediately with renewable generation, that is not practically viable, but our approach is to coal-fire with ammonia, which does not emit CO2 when combusted. So gradually lowering the combustion volume of coal and replacing by such next-generation fuel. And similarly for gas-fired power generation, we consider gradual introduction of hydrogen so that such stable power generation facilities can be utilized, but while continuously lowering emissions. And also, of course, renewable generation expansion is critical, but we also need to be careful about I believe we should try to maximize the development of renewables in a sustainable way. But as everyone understands, energy density of renewable is much, much lower than thermal power generation. So therefore, we also need to be mindful about how much potential impact, like cutting trees, cutting land use changes, will have a potential impact as a whole. So as long as we can strike the balance of such a sustainable way pursuing towards the target net zero goal, I think it's great. But finally, each country has a different situation. Singapore and Malaysia also totally different situation. So therefore, such approach, power supply or decarbonization, need to be tailored to the local conditions.
And you have to be flexible
Yes.
in a corporate way, dealing with different jurisdictions. Varun, again, you're one of the great leaders in this. I mean, how evangelical are you about the colour of your electrons? And what do you do in terms of partnerships to try and make sure that your very rapid build-out is as low carbon as possible?
I'll take off from Dato Kamal's reflection on what happened a couple of years ago. And as PDG started in a couple of years ago in Johor, it was a joint leap of faith between TNB and PDG to go build it. In that, TNB was believing that PDG is going to build at the scale at which we are saying we would, and we were saying that TNB would deliver the power as we are going along. So the initial focus, a lot clear in each of the markets, like in Malaysia, has been to get the electrons and to get the project started and to get capacity done. At the same time, while we are doing site selection, and Johor was an important factor in that, as well as what we're doing in India, we look for locations which are green first. So therefore, there is that possibility, either because of availability of resources or because of the government framework, or both, of getting green electrons. So on day one, we may not always start with green electrons, but we have a clear picture of how we get there.
You've got a pathway.
Absolutely. And that transition, along with transmission in your famous phrase, is very important for us to get there. And so what we are seeing across markets is that there is a time lag between markets, and obviously scale is different. But across all markets, we're seeing a couple of trends driving the movement towards green electrons. One is the decarbonization of the grid. So to Izumi-san's point, in markets like Japan, the grid itself is decarbonizing, which is obviously beneficial, but also because of market opportunities to acquire green power, either through a power purchase agreement, like the CREST model, or other models that are used to do that. So those two drivers together give us confidence that we will be able to get there in terms of green power. So to your original question, we're absolute believers and radicals in terms of getting green power. We think we should get there. There is no choice. But you don't need necessarily to have it completely driven on day one, as long as you have a clear and credible way of getting there eventually.
I mean, this is, this conversation about blending, if you like, and having the transparency around what is the commitment to low carbon energy, what is the reliability of the current supply, what are the planning constraints or otherwise. And of course, the UK, we have done incredibly well with our green energy build out. We still have challenges with some of the on-the-ground planning constraints, as much as we want to really build out very large-scale data centers, but we're getting there. So I'm going to ask you to have a bit of a thought experiment with me. We're going to have the data center Olympics in our heads. And we're only going to have a gold and silver medal. And this is a geographical, not a corporate Olympics. Otherwise, Varun, I know you'd say that you would win. And of course, you're allowed to promote your own country, which you've done very well. But what I want you to do is tell us if you can pick two destinations in our region that you think will emerge as winners in terms of data center location. Varun, you go first, and I'll work down.
So I'll recommend one. I'll kind of suggest one, and I'll let others pick one. So I think ASEAN as a whole has the opportunity to win, because one, we've got, if you take the entire market, I'm talking about Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia all together, we're talking about some of the most vibrant economies in the world. In terms of population, we're talking about a significant amount of population. Data center demand, in terms of how data is regulated, you're seeing some really progressive policies. But also in terms of green power, we see a lot of opportunity, whether that's the Ring of Fire, whether that's availability of solar energy, whether that's availability of hydroelectric.
Ring of Fire in the sense of geothermal.
Geothermal, exactly. Thank you for helping me clarify. So that combination, I think, puts ASEAN, I don't know if it's gold or silver, but I would have them on the podium together, and that's my suggestion.
Thank you. Kai?
Yeah, so globally, of course, the United States is allocating significant resources. And just, I think today, yesterday, I think President Trump was in Japan, and Japan committed a significant amount of investment, which was about 400 billion Japanese yen or so, which is 250 billion US dollars. So So not only for data center only, but entire investment from Japan to US, and which includes significant power supply related to data centers. So clearly the United States has a great potential. But same, I echo his comment, like ASEAN, instead of choosing one country like
You choose the region. Very good.
and assuming these ASEAN countries are connected through the grid and leveraging available resources, geothermal, hydro, solar, etc. So I think that is, I hope, a great potential here.
Great.
Yeah.
Jacek.
Yeah. I may be biased,
Of course, you're allowed to be biased. You're the
Definitely
champion.
Johor and Kuala Lumpur, but just to share the story of how PDG, they brought us to Kuala Lumpur with the Chief Minister of Johor on stage, and they said that we're going to build this huge data center, 265 megawatt, in 12 months. And here we are saying that 12 months, 265, we never heard of
Come
that.
on.
So they already put us on that the ring of shooting platform where we have to deliver. And Tenaga, we delivered within 9 months. So the key to this is, I think, is about speed to deliver. And of course, Varun was saying about the ASEAN power grid and ASEAN interconnection, which is coming in lately is very active in terms of the, what's happening on the ground. So I guess I echo with Varun and the rest of the panel saying ASEAN is going to be the hub of DC in the future. Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time, so I've taken away 3 things. One is speed to delivery, that there is this sense now that we're facing these new challenges, and the quicker we can get on and test out models, test out locations, the better. The second is this flexibility in the dialogue. It's very striking to see you referenced how your government is looking at this, the kind of very open and transparent way in terms of which these important decisions are being recognized. And lastly, I guess just an open mindset in terms of what we're putting into the grid. We need to deliver reliability, we need to deal with these demands as well as the existing demands. We haven't even talked about who pays for this. That would be a long conversation, but it needs to be affordable. And I share the view that I think this region is extremely well placed for this build out. So can I ask you to join me in thanking this excellent panel for their contributions.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, panelists. Our next presentation, ladies and gentlemen, is on unlocking ammonia's power in decarbonization. Presenting this is the VP Business Development, Amogy, Dr. Stone Chang.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. In this session, I will talk a little bit about ammonia and its role in the decarbonization. Just before I start, in this room, anyone is currently working with ammonia in the decarbonization context? If you could raise your hand. Okay, very few. Second question, anyone believes that ammonia will play an important role in decarbonization in the next period or the future? A little bit more. Thank you for the participation. Hopefully after this session, we'll change a little bit. So let me start by introducing our company. Amogy is basically ammonia energy in a short form. So we are a 5-year-old company, 100-people company. In the last 5 years, we have done 4 demonstration projects, started by a 5-kilowatt ammonia-powered drone, very small, and then scale it up to a 100-kilowatt ammonia-powered tractor and 300-kilowatt ammonia-powered truck. Last September, we did a 1-megawatt ammonia-powered zero-carbon tugboat. Why we do this? We're trying to prove 2 things. Number 1, ammonia to power is workable in the transportation sector. So we can make the technology so compact, so it can be used in transportation and distributed scale. Number 1. 2, we want to prove it's also scalable. So with those 2, along the last few rounds of financing, we are supported and thankfully by quite a wide spectrum of the industry value chain. As you can see from our investor base, so a lot of them are strategic investors, industrial investors. Majority of them are from Asia Pacific region. So they believe our technology is relevant for their own business and their ecosystem and decarbonization. So moving on, so what is our core technology? So our core technology is around ammonia cracking catalyst. So ammonia cracking is nothing new, but we have developed the catalysts that enable ammonia to crack at a much lower temperature and higher efficiency. Therefore, we can make the system so compact, it can be applied to the transportation distributed sectors. So we want to see ourselves as an enabler of ammonia as a fuel so that you can avoid the mainstream of transporting and storing the hydrogen. Instead, you can use ammonia as a fuel and generate power through this system. So we have an ammonia reforming module, and after hydrogen being generated through the process, it can be fed into like fuel cell technology or hydrogen engine technology or hydrogen turbine, etc. So that way, you can basically have ammonia as a fuel and zero carbon electricity out. So that's in the core, our core technology. Today, we offer two ammonia to power systems. One is combining the reformer with a hydrogen engine, 100% hydrogen engine. The other one is a hydrogen fuel cell. So that's our two products that we are offering to the market, plus our catalyst. So I gave you a few examples on how this is applied in other markets. So in Korea, we have signed an agreement at the Pohang City. It's a 40 megawatts distributed scale ammonia-powered plant. So why they want to do this? In Pohang, you have the heavy industry sectors. They are selling their products like batteries to European market. And driven by the CBAM regulation there, they have to clean the scope 1 and 2 on their production side, number one. Number two, Korea as a country is leading, really launching the policy to incentivize uptake of clean power like our solution. So this is really a good demonstration of public sector policy, government, and private sector and cross-border setting. So that's one example. The one in the middle is in Japan. So we're involved in Japan's first industrial scale ammonia cracking plant, demonstration plant, led by JGC and funded by NIDO and participated by 5 other Japanese companies. So we are only non-Japanese company in this consortium where we provide our catalyst to these parties. And then the one to the right is a maritime shipping case. So Samsung Heavy Industry is an investor to our company, but also a collaborator. So we are co-developing a power pack system for the maritime shipping industry, starting from replacing the auxiliary engine, which burns diesel, with ammonia to power onboard the ship. So for these ships trading into European waters, when you are at berth, that you can use our system to keep the lights on without any carbon emission. And then in the next step, we're going to develop a larger system that will really replace the 2-stroke engine for the whole ship so that you are able to attack decarbonization, digitalization at the same time. So those are the 3 examples we have done. And the last slide I have is Singapore. So we are recently announced the MOU with A-Star and of course supported by EDB and EMA and the Singapore government that we are going to together launch a LCT3 ammonia to power testing bed in Singapore at the Jurong Island. And with this, we really look forward to bring our technology to Singapore to contribute the decarbonization journey here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stone. We'll invite you to take a seat, and Claire's joining you right here to deep dive a little bit more into your conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang. You get me again, sorry. That was really interesting. And you kind of so one of the other things we say about the energy transition is we did
Right.
the easy bits first.
Right.
You kind of plunged into the hard stuff, the hardest to abate
Right.
sectors with really innovative technology.
Right.
Do you detect any lessening in enthusiasm for these solutions, given what we've talked about in terms of, where the transition might be going?
Yeah, I think our whole company is betting the ammonia as a fuel. And we truly believe, because if you look at the molecule, there's no carbon in it. And that's really what decarbonization is all about. And we believe ammonia is something that has been handled for the last century. And it's had been used in many, many cases, transported in many, many countries. So this is just something we want to put it in the energy context. And then the thing that is missing is something like our technology to enable it. Yeah. So that's the passion we have.
And ammonia versus hydrogen? Because there's this, again, some of the sectors
Right.
you're looking at have been trialing different solutions. Give us the plug for ammonia.
Yeah, ammonia is a fantastic hydrogen carrier. So hydrogen is really the ultimate
Chemical
Yeah.
part of ammonia. Yeah.
Right. So ammonia is a good carrier and much easier to transport and store and handle.
And gaseous hydrogen. Really
yeah.
interesting. You're based in Singapore. You have a number of Singaporean-based investors as well as global investors.
Right.
Tell us a bit about this Singaporean ecosystem. How easy was it to develop the company, sell the idea, scale the business?
Right. Yeah, I think Singapore is very unique in many ways. One of our key investors, Temasek, right? So Temasek is really helpful opening doors for us to meet the government agencies as well as the commercial sector collaborators. So that's been very helpful. I think with our technology, there are a few areas we can be hopefully relevant and helpful. One, of course, Singapore is a global shipping center. So Singapore is responsible for 10% of the global bunkering. So I think
Yes.
when the shipping industry uptaking ammonia as a mainstream fuel, Singapore will play a key role. And when ammonia arrives with volume, that will also drive other consumptions like the power generation. I know this capital-led consortium was announced. Something like our technology will be helpful. I think the 700 megawatts Jurong Island data center, 50% green content is also very helpful and supportive. Yeah, I can see many ways Singapore can be a leader in this transition. Yeah.
And using, in that case, shipping as the kind of catalytic industry and using Singapore's strength in that industry.
Right. So if you look at the new ammonia production forecast by 2050, there's only 3 drivers that drive the new production of ammonia. So one is the marine fuel, and then the power generation, and then the hydrogen. So those will be 3 really driving maybe most of the ammonia to be produced in the future. And I think Singapore is benefiting from all of that.
So we like the Singapore ecosystem. I agree. I think it's extremely helpful. Other areas that do this well, or other examples where you've seen these scale-ups, particularly of technologies that we know we need, but which require a lot of innovation? Tell us about those.
Right. I think the technology part coming from the technology company, we can do it. I think to make it a reality, it requires a lot of collaboration. The government policies, like the policy that Korea and Japan is launching, the CFD regime, to really incentivize uptake of these new alternative fuels in the energy context is very important. And then when you are reaching the volume, getting things started, build the infrastructure, things will happen. I think from the technology domain, with dear colleagues in this room, we can fix it, no problem.
How about the capital domain, capital privilege? Because capital for growth
Yeah.
stage, particularly in the hardest to abate sectors, has
Right.
always been, we've no shortage of startup capital.
Right.
Scale-up and growth
It's
is
been
what-
it's been quite a big shift in the capital market in the last period. We have been quite lucky. So last year we raised like $100 million. This year, actually.
Congratulations.
This year. So really supported by the Asia region, and they truly believe in this. I think US, to some extent, is influencing this capital market a bit, but I don't think that's the only factor. So I think what's happening in the Asia region is really driving company like us to get access to the off-taker and therefore bankability and
To scale up the business
to
model.
scale up the business.
Well, thank you. I mean, absolutely fascinating. As a director of SGX, I would be remiss in not saying we'd like you to grow and then float on the stock exchange at some point. So
Thank
we
you
will
very
look
much.
forward to that.
Thank
But
you.
can I ask the audience to express their thanks for your very interesting presentation?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have a session on smarter, cleaner, resilient, how AI is accelerating the energy transition. Please welcome on stage Arun Biswas, Strategic Engagements Leader, IBM Consulting Asia Pacific.
Good afternoon, everyone. Over the last 2 days, there are 3 simple messages that I've been hearing over and over again. First, we need a lot of energy in this region, and I think we need a bit of energy in the room also. This energy needs to be supplied in not only a sustainable manner, but also in a secure, reliable, and affordable manner. And finally, this is quite complex. It is not just a matter of switching one fuel source to the other, but we have to reimagine the entire energy ecosystem and make it really smarter, cleaner, and more resilient. And this is where I believe we can have some help from AI. So I have been, over the last 2 decades, helping companies transform using technology. Over the last 5 years, my focus has been in the use of AI in areas such as energy transition. And today, I'm going to share with you a couple of examples of work which we are actually doing with our clients and show you how we can use this technology right now today to start moving the needle. In my experience, in the area of energy transition and shaping energy ecosystems, there are 4 key ways in which AI can help. The first is energy mix. AI can help integrate more renewables into the energy ecosystem. The second is energy efficiency. Now, this is often quite overlooked, but this is very important. AI can make your assets, your operations, your facilities more efficient. Third, monitoring. AI is very good at actually measuring, the direct measurement of various things like emissions, carbon, heat, environment, etc., and so on. And finally, innovation. AI is good at discovering new solutions. So let's dive in. First, the energy mix. Now, again, over the last 2 days, we have heard that one of the big issues with renewable energy is this issue called intermittency. The sun hides, the wind stops blowing. The grid, on the other hand, has to continue delivering power, come what may. And this is where this volatility is a place where AI can help. One of the issues we have is that we need much better forecasts, very, very accurate energy forecasts. So a good example is that in Australia, we are working with the Western Australian grid, and we have deployed over 1,000 machine learning models to help in energy forecasting, and we have seen some very impressive results. Over 30% more forecast accuracy. What took months is now taking days. But not only that, AI can actually help optimize grids. Now, the grid is one of the largest machines on the whole world, and many of our grids in this part of the world are quite old, and they need to be upgraded. And this is where AI can help. So we are working on building an AI-based foundation model to help optimize grids. What it does is that it takes in data from within the energy ecosystem, like automated metering data, IoT data, etc., and combines it with external data like market data, weather data, climate data, And it can then be used for a number of use cases to optimize the grid, including predicting outages, deciding optimal power flow, balancing grids dynamically, looking at vegetation management, et cetera, and so on. We are collaborating with North American and European utilities. In this effort, we'll be also open sourcing this model for use for everyone, and I'll really be very happy to collaborate with utilities in this region. Next, demand response. We talked a bit about the supply side, we talked a bit about the grid, but we also need to coordinate demand. And this is where AI can also help. One example is in Copenhagen, where we partnered with the local utility, Andel, and the city of Copenhagen to build an energy demand response system called Flex, which is AI-powered. And what it does is that it connects various buildings into the grid, rooftop solar, etc., and builds in more flexibility into the system. It balances the load when it's needed, it balances the load when it's green, it handles bidirectional power supply, net metering, billing, etc., and so on. And this is the kind of virtual power plant solutions, AI-powered, which we'll need increasingly, and I would love to have something like this in Singapore as well. Next, the second frontier we have to tackle is energy efficiency. Now, I'll give you one example. Steel making is one of the most energy and carbon intensive processes in the world. So we have worked with one of the largest steel makers in India to create an AI solution called the Process Brain. What it does is that it controls the blast furnace operations. It monitors parameters in the furnaces, and it automatically adjusts and sets them 24/7 without any need for any operator intervention. And with that, we have seen results which are quite promising. 3% reduction in coke, and remember, coke is pure carbon. 15% improvement in production yield. Moving on to the third frontier, which is monitoring. Now, energy systems rely on thousands of critical assets. And often these assets are in remote locations. They're in often dangerous locations. So AI can help in monitoring these assets quite well. And that increases not only the efficiency, but it also increases safety. So this is an example of our work with the National Grid in the US and Boston Dynamics, the maker of these robots. So we have an AI-powered model which can visually help inspect these energy assets for anomalies, for detecting faults, etc. And monitoring can not only be done at an asset level, we can now do it at an environment level. So one of our flagship programs is with NASA. So we use NASA's satellite data to monitor the environment. And we have come up with this model called Prithvi. Prithvi in Hindi means the earth. And what it is, it's really a geospatial foundation model. And by the way, a copy of this model is available in open source. You can go and download it from Hugging Space if you want. We are big believers in open source. And what it can do is that it can model and monitor weather, climate, it can monitor emissions. What you see in the picture is actually a heat map of the city of Baltimore. Now imagine using this kind of a heat map in Singapore to decide on your location for your solar panels, etc., and so on. And there are many other use cases. Shifting to the final and fourth frontier, which is innovation. Now, in order for us to take big leaps, I'm talking about big leaps here in energy transition, we need some really path-breaking solutions, and we need new materials for, let's say, battery chemistry, new materials for solar cells, new materials that can absorb carbon better. And all of this now can be aided by AI. Materials discovery typically takes decades. But now with AI, we can bring down the time dramatically. With our IBM research team, we have built AI models that can actually accelerate this process by up to 5, even sometimes 10 times. And we are pointing this engine now to making better batteries, better carbon absorbing materials, better solar cells, and so on. And finally, on the innovation side, we also know that we have a real problem with AI itself. It is quite energy intensive. It does take a lot of power to train these models. and to put it into inference. And we have to tackle that. We have to tackle that head on. And this is where, again, AI can help. Our focus in IBM is in 3 areas. One is smaller models. You really don't need a large language model which can write in the style of Shakespeare to do a time series forecasting. Much smaller model, domain trained, can be as good, if not better, at that particular task. Smaller models is one. Second is lesser data. And also using AI to generate data. And finally, how do we optimize the entire energy infrastructure around the use of AI? So these are areas where we are working, and again, a lot of our research, a lot of our solutions are out there to be used quite freely by all of you. A bit of reality check. While we have been talking about AI and use of AI across the entire value chain in energy, and this is something which I do for a living, what I'm finding here is that there is a real challenge. These are results from 2 MIT surveys. The one on the left-hand side talks about the fact that while generative AI adoption is there across 76% of the companies surveyed, only 9% are using it widely. And there is a much more widely quoted study which came out this year which talked about 95% of Gen AI projects not giving any measurable return on them. So these are big numbers, right? So what's coming in the way, really? I think the key thing to understand is that AI is not a technical challenge, it's a socio-technical challenge. And often things that come in the way are things like ROI. What is the business value of AI, really? Trust. How do you address things like hallucination, bias, and so on? And skills. You really need both AI skills and domain skills to tackle these kind of large implementations and so on. But there is good news, and the good news is that it can be done. It can be done at scale, and IBM is the proof of that. Over the last 2 years, we have been deploying AI across all our enterprise functions, over 70 different workflows, and what we have found is over 30% productivity savings, roughly $3.5 billion of savings, and this is not stopping. We are continuing to accelerate beyond that. But at the same time, it's important to keep in mind that this was not the result of one killer app or a killer model, but we had to tackle it in a holistic manner. This was a program that involved process change, operating model change. It involved AI governance. It involved not only the models, but the data itself. It involved change management, and it involved leadership, quite frankly. It continues to be a large transformation program within IBM. So I'm going to end by sharing with you that AI is not a silver bullet. The best way to think about it is a catalyst, very, very powerful catalyst, and used in the right way, responsibly, it can actually help accelerate the energy transition. It can make the energy system smarter, cleaner, and more resilient. And if any of you need help in that area, we are very, very happy to be there for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. We invite you to be on stage, as coming up on stage is the moderator for this session to have a conversation with you. Of course, we've got SIEW, Asia Director and Senior Advisor of the World Energy Council.
Good person.
Enjoy this one.
Thank you. Right. Oh, we've got a very, very quick speed dating. It's getting shorter and shorter with a fascinating topic, AI and energy. I won't ask you a lot of the detailed technical things because I'm not a technical background. Nonetheless, there's a lot of things, angles and perspectives we can dive into. Number one, you talked a lot about AI enabling energy transition from source to efficiency, to monitoring, to innovation. How could you make sure, AI at the same time using a lot of energy so that, AI don't create a problem it's trying to resolve, meaning that, the carbon footprint in that sense? How do we balance the two?
Yeah, and I did mention some of the techniques during my presentation, but we have to be very thoughtful about how we apply AI. And the trend is towards not large models, but smaller models, lesser data to train the models, better model architectures, as well as more optimized infrastructure, including not just hardware and data centers, but also chips, the way you design the chips.
Right. So to be more innovative itself, to use
And,
lesser.
and by the way, you can use AI to do all of that. So you can actually use AI to make AI green.
Right. That's a great thing. Using AI to make AI green. That's a good takeaway. Thank you. You alluded to the data question. Data could be a barrier in itself, meaning that utility, the company who wanted to use AI, actually need to have good data. So in this way, what would be the single most practical step the utility company can take to get AI ready? Because not every utility are now adopting AI. So what would be your advice?
Yeah, and this is absolutely a prerequisite. So my advice to the utilities would be to do some things, basic things right. Get your data in one place, get it cleaned, have a data governance program. Even go down to simple things like the way you call a certain thing. You have standard ways of doing it across your company and so on. And also, please share data. Because without your data, we can't train these models. And there are ways of anonymizing it and protecting your IP and all of that to do that. And also cross-border sharing. We have to have policies which will allow data sharing across borders as well.
Yeah, so having own data, but also sharing,
Yes.
which you alluded to as an open system.
And I think many utilities have not invested in the digital infrastructure which it requires to collect data like IoT sensors, etc. It's time to invest on that, because without that, you will not have the data to be able to train your AI models.
Yeah.
And then also being very thoughtful of, because many of them have the data but have just not collected it in one place to be able to analyze it.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, we're running out of time, but do have another question for Aaron. How do you, in scaling the impact, if AI can help energy transition faster, more resilient, in a way, what would it take to move from AI pilots or early adopting to be AI-powered utilities across the region?
And I gave the example of IBM. Now, IBM is not a utility, but the way we have scaled AI across our company and over the 2 years, the $3.5 billion of savings we have got, many of those lessons can be applied to not only utilities, to every company. I mean, I think we are up on time, but if anybody wants to know more about that, we're very happy to have deep dive sessions. But the trick there is not to treat that as a technical problem. It is really a business transformation and change management issue, which requires, unlike any other technology, it will require an entire company galvanized, so it will require really, really strong top-down leadership to get
Super.
there.
A lot of practical advices using AI to green AI, getting your data ready, be ready to share, putting the infrastructure in place. Don't treat AI as a technology project. It is a business transformation. With that, we have to wrap up with this very short and speedy dating. Hopefully, you get something to take away with you. Thank you so much, and please give applause to Aaron for sharing your examples and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arun and SIEW, thank you very much. The next topic in conversation, ladies and gentlemen, will be unlocking biomethane, a pathway for Southeast Asia's low-carbon future. On stage is the Chief Executive Officer, 3 Degrees, Philippe Vedrine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me for this TechTable discussion. It's a privilege to discuss a low-carbon energy resource which is very often overlooked, but that yet has a potential to significantly contribute to the future of and to the Southeast Asia low-carbon energy future. I'm talking about biomethane. So my goal today is you to leave this room with 3 convictions. The first one is that biomethane is a genuinely low-carbon energy resource that can accelerate here the energy transition in Southeast Asia. The second is that it's cost competitive. And the third is that its generation can be pretty rapidly scaled up if we have the right regulation and a good level of cooperation at regional level. So let's dive into my first point. What is biomethane first, and why is it so compelling? So biomethane is purified biogas that results from the decomposition of organic matters. So you can think about industrial waste, agricultural waste, municipal waste, Raw biogas in general is burnt on site to produce power and heat, but when it's upgraded into the form of biomethane, it's chemically identical to natural gas and can be injected into the natural gas grid. So no difference with natural gas, except that it is low carbon and renewable. And by the way, in the United States, we call biomethane renewable natural gas. So it's generally a low carbon energy, meaning that when you produce biomethane, actually you capture emissions from methane emissions from waste, and methane is actually a gas which has a very high global warming power. So let's dive a bit into the numbers. If you produce biomethane from 1 cubic meter of palm oil meal effluent, you can avoid roughly 200 to 500 kilograms of CO2 emissions. That means for mid-size palm oil mill, it means 75,000 tons of CO2 emissions saved on a yearly basis. So imagine the potential for the regions. We have more than 1,000 palm oil mill in the region, so potentially we could avoid 50 to 70 million tons a year of emissions. The beauty of biomethane is that when it's injected into the grid, it can actually replace natural gas in all of its usages, and therefore biomethane is actually a low carbon energy today that is available for hard-to-abate sector. So you might think about steel making, might think about fertilizer industry, even heavy-duty transport. These sectors will be, electrification of these sectors might be pretty challenging from a technical perspective, pretty costly, decades away of widely decarbonized, whereby biomethane is already available, and you can actually decarbonize these industries without changing and investing into new processes. When we talk about biomethane, what is the potential of its production? According to IEA, South Asia could produce 80 billion cubic meter per year of biogas. That represents roughly 40% of the natural gas demand here in the region. If you make the assumption that 20% of this biogas can be upgraded and injected into the grid, it means that you could deliver 8% of the natural gas demand in the form of biomethane. Today, it's less than 0.01%, so we have a huge room to go and actually a very much untapped potential. On the other side of the equation, probably you can estimate 10 to 15% of the natural gas demand will never be replaced by renewable power. And so there will be demand actually for this potential production. That leads to my second point, which is biomethane is cost competitive. Cost of producing and aggregating biomethane is around $20 to $25 US dollars per MMBTU. Cost of natural gas, wholesale market, around $10 per MMBTU, which means that biomethane commands a $10 to $15 per MMBTU premium. But that does not take into account the value of biomethane and its co-benefits. Which are they? The first one is biomethane displaces fossil fuel natural gas. The second is that it captures emissions in the way it's produced. The third one, for some biomethane, you produce digestate that you can use to enrich the soil and displace fossil fuel-based fertilizers. The fourth, you produce local energy, which you like for your security of supply. And the last one, which is not the least, it's bring additional revenues for local communities and farmers, which is important. If you factor $50 per ton of CO2 emissions saved, it's roughly $8 to $10 per MMBTU of value embedded into the biomethane, which covers a huge part actually of the premium, and that does not take into account the other benefits of biomethane that I mentioned. Another way to look at competitivity of biomethane is that $20 to $25 per MMBTU is equivalent to $70 to $85 per megawatt hour. It's today cheaper than 24/7 renewable power. My third point now to finish with is that we can accelerate and scale up the generation of biomethane. It's not a distant aspiration if actually we have the right regulation and the right level of cooperation at regional level. The technology is available, technology is proven. We have feedstock here available, a lot of palm oil meal effluents, a lot of manure from livestock, whether it's Thailand, whether it's Malaysia or Indonesia. And we're already programmed to support biogas. But if we want to go into the biomethane, we need to double down and to accelerate. what can be done? Few ideas. One, incentivize infrastructure operators to facilitate grid injection, especially developing, expansion in clusters where you have significant feedstock. A second would be, for example, to put in place mandates to gas distributors to do fuel mixing. Mixing biomethane with natural gas would certainly create a baseline demand, which would be important for investors. A third one would be to create market-based mechanism that will generate revenues from biomethane trading, in addition to subsidies or in replacement of these subsidies. And to do so, we need to have a regional cooperation to have clear, common definition of what is biomethane, how to certify biomethane production, how to have registries at national level that can work across border in an efficient way, avoiding double counting. Typically, kickstarting a market at a regional level would be as well a great initiative, and I think that Singapore is very well placed to do that and will support, obviously, some investments, avoiding potentially significant public money to spur investment in this asset class. So this kind of policy mix, this is the kind of things we saw in Europe with some success. It took in Europe 10 years to build 4 billion cubic meters per year of capacity. I genuinely believe that we can be twice as fast here in South Asia, and so in 2030 we could have this 4 BCM a year of capacity. If at inception we consider that we have a regional play and the willingness to build harmonized standards, and if we have a good dose of pragmatism, which I believe we have plenty of, biomethane will play a significant part in Southeast Asia low-carbon energy future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philippe. We invite you to take a seat on stage, and SIEW is coming up right now for that conversation with you.
Philippa, thank you so much. Thank you so much for biomethane 101, right? You all agree, from supply to demand, to pricing, to competitiveness, to future of this particular low-carbon fuel and application in Asia. So I'm not going to dive into all the technicality you talked about, but I do have a lot of questions on behalf of our audience about this particular low-carbon fuel future. So you've alluded to, in fact, biomethane technically ready and is proven. Nonetheless, it's underused, particularly in our part of the world. If I get it right, it is 0.01%,
yeah.
which is so little. So in a way, what is the biggest missing link in making sure that this biofuel, low carbon, will take a bigger role? In that sense, is it policy, is it the pricing, is it the perception, or is it a combination of all of them?
It's maybe a combination of all of them.
Okay, give a bit more.
I will give a bit more. I would start maybe with first perception. And I started with that argument. I mean, we underscore the benefit of biomethane from a CO2 perspective.
Right.
It has primarily been developed initially for good reasons in the form of biogas, because it's waste energy, and you want to use in an efficient way waste. Sure. But I think that the merit of biomethane is, one, it is a way to effectively decarbonize sectors, so the regular sector, and on the other way, it's a way to have a low-carbon energy today available for hard-to-abate sector. We discussed that a bit earlier. Ammonia is obviously a vector for the future. We discussed about H2, but I mean, this is here something which is not new technology. This is existing technology that we can apply already to a hard-to-abate sector. So in the form of biomethane, that's where you achieve these kind of goals. So there's a question of perception. There might be as well a question of policy. It's true that when you look either in the United States or in Europe, the fact that either in the Californian market or in European market, you have incentives to save CO2, so that might be in the form of tax or quotas. The fact that you price or you force some economical stakeholders to price CO2 is a huge incentive actually to develop this kind of energy.
Yeah, great. A combination of policy, pricing, and perception to start with. Super. So let's move on to the money side of the things, which is really around the case for investment. So what would convince investors that biomethane is not just a niche green gas, but a scalable energy play for the region. So what would be your pitch to the investor?
All right. I would say first, it's not that niche. I mean, when I'm talking about 4 BCM a year of capacity, it's probably $4 to $6 billion of investments. You can, take this kind of ratio.
Yeah.
4 to 6 billion is not huge, but it's still a nice niche to invest in.
Right.
And actually investing $6 billion will unlock roughly $30 billion of revenue over the next 10 years. So it's more than a niche, in my opinion. What will make as well the investor more comfortable actually to invest is the capability for them to invest in an energy that, is fungible across the region, meaning that you have the certainty that you will be able to find off-takers.
Right.
And therefore, for me, this importance of a cross-regional cooperation. A third element which will be important is any kind of investors will want to have some form of long-term contracts, certainty in the demand. I think that there is a demand from some industrial players ready to commit to for 10, 12 years. And they're ready to commit in these spreads between the biomethane value and natural gas value because they see actually these, the environmental benefits associated. So if you have this combination of the 3 elements, normally you should have some investors very keen to invest there.
Super. I'm sure that you are convincing the investor to jump in. So you did mention earlier in your presentation around the 10-year journey that Europe has taken in this biomethane thing. So in that case, what would Asia could learn from Europe's integrated biomethane market? What are the sort of adaptations that is needed for this part of the world?
First of all, I think we will find our own recipe here in Asia and not copy-paste. But if I may suggest something, is to avoid to go from national to regional. I heard very much yesterday a lot of policymakers stating that we want to, at inception, consider a regional approach. That will be game changer. To give you just one idea, when you want to put in place these mechanisms where you can actually move biomethane across countries and between actually producers and consumers, you need registries.
Right.
If we were able right now at inception to create an ASEAN registry, you would give the signal to the market that this regional cooperation will has some chance to work and give a signal to investors that this is a regional matter and not just a country policy that will happen. And here we're not talking about power lines to be built. We're not talking about big money of infrastructures. It's just paperwork. So if there is a good willingness to actually build this kind of infrastructure, then you have actually the framework to be able to create this fungibility and liquidity across the region.
Interesting. Start from the regional perspective. Amazing. Great. Now we wanted to lastly examine the role of the business and the corporate side of things. So many companies pledged to be carbon zero, net zero, and yet we have this wonderful biomethane thing. So what would be the most realistic way for the company to drive the market demand? Because they are the users, or they are the one to apply those.
The best way, and that's the way typically we saw here in Europe the market moving on, and I think we have some as well aspects of that here in Asia, is more and more to get into the long term. When you look at renewable power, these businesses were scaled up because actually you were able to close power purchasing agreement for 10 years, 12 years. And the biomethane stage, and I think that any kind of new energy, that's the way actually you can stimulate investment and secure actually this new economy to be there.
Yeah.
And because some of them have this long-term vision in terms of decarbonization, they know where they are today, where they need to be in 2035, and maybe because they have not so many options today to get these low-carbon energy, I think many of them are able to commit, and there will be a huge lever for this industry to take off.
Yeah, with a long-term view, but start action today.
Exactly.
Super. With that, we have to conclude. We're reminded to wrap up. So let's give applause to our wonderful speaker. Thank you, Philippa.
Thank you very much.
For the 101.
Thank you, SIEW, and thank you, Philippe. Our next session, ladies and gentlemen, is on the role of biomethane in decarbonization today. Presenting is the Vice President, Sales and Solution Development, Air Liquide Engineering and Construction Asia Pacific, Managing Director, Air Liquide Engineering and Construction Singapore. On stage now is Dr. Jan Kolmis.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's good to be here. Thank you for EMA to give me the opportunity to present here today. Thank you, Philippe. I think it was an excellent speech. You prepared the crowd for my presentation today, and we all now familiar what is biomethane. We are familiar what is biogas, and I would like to continue on this previous speech. If you allow me, I need to guide you through a few corporate slides. I am representing Air Liquide. Air Liquide is a French company headquartered in Paris, history of more than 120 years. We are world leader in industrial gas. Industrial gas is for us oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, argon, helium. Why I'm highlighting this, even if I talk about methane, bio-LNG, we are not an energy company. We are not trading bio-LNG, we are not trading methane. But if we talk about hydrogen and we reflect how is hydrogen produced as of today, the majority of the traditional hydrogen production is based on steam methane reformer. This steam methane reformer emits CO2. So in one form, we as Air Liquide, we have a carbon abatement roadmap, and I will introduce in my next slide. We seek for opportunities to decarbonize our assets. And biomethane plays an essential role for us in decarbonizing our assets. As we are in Singapore, I also want to use the opportunity to introduce Air Liquide Singapore. Air Liquide Singapore is the market leader in industrial gas here in Singapore. Established in 1911, we have about 650 employees, larger 80% market share. I think it's worth to highlight that we own and operate our own pipeline network here in Singapore. If we talk about hydrogen, we own and operate 45 kilometers, 45 kilometers hydrogen pipeline in Singapore. So we have the ability to produce hydrogen molecules and also distribute it to our customers. Thank you. I leave it here, it's okay? Okay. Here, yes. So, let's continue. I mentioned already, as many stakeholders here in the room, Air Liquide, we have a carbon abatement roadmap. By 2050, we want to be carbon neutral with an intermediate target at 2035. In this year, 2025, we reach peak CO2 emission, and then we want to reduce our CO2 emission while we want to grow and continue to grow our business. If we talk about this, look to our assets. We talked about oxygen, nitrogen produced in air separation units. For this, we need power. To decarbonize these assets, we buy renewable power, PPAs or direct tie-in of renewable power. If we talk about hydrogen, and I mentioned it already, steam methane reformer, we can look into carbon capture system. Then the question is what to do with the CO2. We need to have an outlet of CO2. This is developed in large capacity CCUS hubs, ongoing development here in Singapore, various developments in Europe and US, with a limitation, with a timeline challenge when this sink is available. If we talk about ammonia, we had the topic and we presented earlier how to produce low carbon ammonia, how to produce a green ammonia, how to transport this ammonia, how to crack this ammonia back into hydrogen, how to upscale this value chain, also technical challenges. And I fully concur with a previous speaker, Philippe. Biomethane is a solution which is available today. It's a solution, especially here in Southeast Asia, with the abundant availability of biogenic feedstock. Every one of our industrial stakeholders, we can tap into these green molecules as of today. And if you converted the biogas into biomethane, it's immediately applicable in the existing natural gas infrastructure, natural gas pipelines, natural gas-fired power plants, LNG carriers. The entire infrastructure is available. Talking about biomethane in Air Liquide, I would not call it a niche, but it's not comparable to our standard molecules like oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen. It's mainly located in Europe, Italy, UK. It's mainly located in US. Why it's located in these countries? Because there is a supporting regulations, there is a supporting certification system. Renewable natural gas certificate was mentioned. And we own and operate this type of plants to produce renewable natural gas, to produce biomethane, and then create renewable natural gas certificates and virtually decarbonize our hydrogen assets. This is maturity. We use this in the United States. I think very quickly to guide you through the scheme of this of such an asset. And I think we discussed this is not a high capex asset. It's in the double-digit, lower three-digit million US dollar investment, where we convert different biogenic feedstocks in a digester, in a fermenter system, creating a biogas. This biogas needs an upgrading, separation of methane and CO2, either in an amine wash system or in a membrane system. And then this biomethane could either inject it in the pipeline, the natural gas pipeline, or we liquefy it, and I will talk later about this, to bio-LNG for further distribution. To highlight here, and I said it before, Air Liquide, we are an industrial gas company. Not only the methane is valuable for us, also the CO2. We have a market to utilize this biogenic CO2 in what we call the existing food and beverage market. All your carbon dioxide in your beverages, in your Coca-Cola, is supplied by an industrial gas company. Maybe to highlight, the Air Liquide business model includes that we as a company own and invest into these assets, and we operate them, and we supply this biomethane to the market. A few technical slides, if you allow me. I'm representing also Air Liquide Engineering and Technology. We are the technology arm in the Air Liquide Group, so we're owning different technologies, technology bricks, equipments, and serving the Air Liquide Group, but also serving external customers. I would like to introduce 3 selected technologies in the frame of this biomethane. The first one is this a membrane separation technology to separate methane and the CO2. We're using a hydrocarbon hollow fiber membrane technology. It's an in-house technology. It's called Air Liquide Advanced Separation, based in Delaware in US, which we apply for this kind of CO2 removal. Without going into the details, just to introduce a bit the capacity scheme, the volume flows of this biomethane, and I think this is an aspect we did not discuss so far. I think this is the key challenge of upscaling this biomethane and bio-LNG business, is logistic. If we look into the capacity of the different palm mills and the available palm oil mill effluent polymer feedstock or empty fruit bunches, it's on a regional spot very limited. So the challenge is to upscale this kind of biomethane production, to find the accumulation, to create the economy of scale, that the utilization of this biogas or this biomethane to either bio-LNG or biomethanol or green hydrogen has a basic economy of scale. I would like to talk about turbobriten. This is a biomethane liquefaction technology. There is actually no difference. Methane is CH4. CH4 has no memory. It cannot recall where it comes from a biogenic process or from a fossil source. So if we talk about CH4 liquefaction, it's very similar to a traditional methane liquefaction. This technology is widely applied in the past years in LNG carrier systems. If you have a big LNG carrier coming from Middle East to Singapore, you have spherical tanks. Along the journey, the temperature of the LNG increases. You create so-called boil-off gas. Not to lose these gas molecules, you need to re-liquefy it and put it back in the tank. And this unit, this technology was used more than 190 times, referenced in various LNG carriers. What is the challenge on a ship? You have a limitation on plot space, on size. You don't want to spend too much effort and maintenance and service on operation for this unit. So this is a very robust, maintenance-free, very compact technology, and it's perfectly suitable for this biomethane liquefaction. I do not want to guide you through the entire table. It's a few selected references where we apply this turbo-Brayton LNG technology for biogas plants. The key message on this slide is it's between 5 tons to 100, 150 tons per day available in capacity, perfectly fitting this capacity of a biomethane bio-LNG plant. I think with this, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jan. Thank you. And again, up on stage will be Ms. Liu to have a conversation with you.
Thank you, Yan, for such a deep technology presentation. Nonetheless, I'd like to draw the audience attention and your attention to look at, the role of biomethane to decarbonize for today, so which is really around energy transition and the role. So basically, I wanted to really pose a question to you. Yeah, you earlier mentioned about hydrogen, also CCUS, which was also one of the topics at SIEW about decarbonization possibilities. So there's a lot about this hydrogen and CCUS as a future bet. So why should we, if you were given the advice to policymakers that we need to prioritize biomethane today and not later, what would be your advice?
My advice would not be to prioritize. My advice, it's all complementary. I don't think we have to pick and we have to say this is the solution or this is the solution. It's all a complementary. So if we have a valuable feedstock situation here in Southeast Asia, it's worth to utilize this biogenic feedstock, convert it in biomethane and utilize it.
Right, so as a part of the mix.
As part of the mix. It's can be a very cost-effective measure to avoid carbon.
Right.
But it will not solve the overall topic of CO2 emissions. So we still need to look.
It's not the silver bullet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we still need to develop CO2 capture technologies and CCUS as a
complement.
Company economy of scale.
Yes, super. Thank you. You alluded to, Southeast Asia, very rich in agriculture. The waste can be used to produce biomass and then biomethane. In this thing is really around the dilemma around feedstock. What I'm saying is that how we'll make sure that we don't have this, by developing this complementary low carbon fuel, not have unintended consequences. For instance, the land use pressure or the methane leakage. Is there anything from your perspective to provide some advice?
Very good question. I would even turn the question and say it has benefit. So it's not, I would say it's not a threat. And if you, referring back to the previous speaker, Philip, he mentioned on the untapped potential.
Untapped potential.
And I fully agree. The use of biogas, the use of biomethane is not yet developed in Southeast Asia. And if you look to the existing value chains in such in the palm oil industry, in such palm mills, with the open ponds of a palm oil mill effluent, with the deposition of empty fruit bunches, and then the rain comes, and then it starts to digest, and the methane, the greenhouse gas, impactful methane is emitting, is slipping, which is actually harmful to the atmosphere. So if we develop these biogas utilization projects, we avoid this biomethane leakage to the atmosphere. We use it for our industrial use or needs.
Yeah, so basically make the use of the agricultural waste at the same time be able to potentially cutting down the emission. Super, thank you. I also wanted to look at the regional opportunities. Could Southeast Asia becoming a biomethane export hub? What I'm saying is like linking Indonesia's bio-LNG supply to Singapore, where we have the bunkering services or demand. Is that possible? Or what needs to be done to make it real?
I'm a strong believer of it. I think all the ingredients are there. It's very much possible. what is needed? Needed is, and we had the discussion before,
Yeah.
supporting regulation,
Yes, at the
certification.
regional level. Yeah.
Exactly, certification is a topic. If we could avoid biomethane liquefaction and then a physical shipping of bio-LNG in ISO containers or barges to Singapore, if we could blend it in an existing natural gas pipeline, it will bring the cost down, it will simplify the value chain.
Yeah.
It requires a certification, a documentation, a
Yeah.
transparency. But I think there is a great potential, and I'm a strong believer in this potential.
Super. Hopeful that we could have that cross-border of making use of the biomethane or bio-LNG to get the reduction. Lastly, is really around scalability. How do we make it bigger? Is there any barrier or market barrier to make this more achieving meaningful scale in the next few years? What will be that?
In my view, and I think this is not an absolute view, I think the challenge is on the upstream side. It's not
Upstream.
in the midstream, and
Yeah.
not in the downstream, not in the consumer side, not in the receiver side, not in the shipping or logistic part. It's really in the accumulation of the feedstock.
Yes.
In
Okay.
the
Sufficient
creating-
supply.
Yes, exactly.
Super. Okay, with that, we have to wrap up. Hopefully, with this session, you take away differently from the previous session about the potential of biomethane for decarbonizing, particularly the relevance for Southeast Asia. Thank you, Yan, for your sharing and insights. Let's give Yan a applaud of applause. Thank you so much. Yeah, cheers.
Jan Goldmus, thank you, and Liu Xiaowei, thank you for moderating the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, move on to the next topic of Beyond Electricity, Advanced Nuclear Reactors in the Age of Innovation. On stage is Miriam D'Onofrio, Senior Director, International Market Development and Policy, X Energy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, and thank you especially to our hosts from the Energy Market Authority. It's an amazing event. I love the neon, the colors, everything. Excellent choices. So I know this is towards the end of the day. I would just like to take a poll of the audience, because we're here to talk about one of the sexiest, most discussed, and probably least understood energy technologies of today's day and age. Nuclear. Small modular reactors, specifically. So let's just take a poll. Raise your hand if you are all in on nuclear, you believe it is an essential part of the energy transition, and it is a solution within the next 10 years. Proud, aggressive hand raises. Okay. Sporadic. Raise your hand if you're skeptical about it being real, or at least you don't know enough to make a judgment call. Okay. Some less convicted hands. So let's see if we can change the balance here a little bit over the conversation. So I'm here on behalf of X Energy, which is, we are an advanced reactor company and advanced fuel company. I want to talk about the technology a little bit, but what I really want to do here today is take the time to tell a story. Tell the story about what we are doing to make advanced reactors not a next generation thing, not a next 10 years thing, but to demonstrate how it is a solution now that we are audaciously and aggressively and boldly pursuing right now in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and hopefully we can have a discussion afterwards about how we can take these models of deployment and fit them for purpose for the Asian market. So what are we doing right now? Everyone is talking today in broad terms of how nuclear is an essential part of the energy mix to support the unlimited needs of artificial intelligence today. But, okay, we can agree on that. That's a fairly general statement. But how does that actually come into being? How does that actually manifest itself? And it really starts with a single step, which is a project. How do you make a nuclear project happen? A small modular reactor project that has never been commercialized before. We have small modular reactors functioning and working everywhere in the world. Your nuclear icebreaker fleet, your nuclear aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, Small modular reactors are not an unproven technology, but they have not been successfully commercialized. And that is what we at X Energy are trying to do right now. Every day we are obsessed with a single goal, and that is how to build the first advanced nuclear power plant, small modular reactor power plant, to support an industrial site at a commercial scale in the Western Hemisphere. If I could take one goal, one mission statement, and articulate it for our company, that is what we are trying to do. So how are we doing that? We have active projects right now that we are learning from every day. We are adapting, we're conversing with our partners, and we're applying those lessons learned to create a scalable model that can eventually be exported to the world. Our first project is a 4-reactor project. Our reactor, our flagship reactor, is a high-temperature gas-cooled reactor that produces 80 megawatts of electricity or 200 megawatts of thermal energy. So one XE100 reactor, our flagship high-temperature gas-cooled reactor, is about that capacity, and we build them in packs of 4. So our first site is actually in partnership with Dow Chemical Company, which is not a traditional partner that you would see in the nuclear industry. Dow Chemical, they're a petrochemical company. You see Dow's name on the major stock exchange. What are they doing playing in nuclear? Well, the thing is that the novelty of Generation 4 advanced reactors, the small modular ones, is that not only are they a carbon-free electricity option, but they can now have the functionality to provide high-temperature process heat to heavy industrial sectors that need that high-temperature steam heat, more so than the electricity. And that's where the real innovation is, I think, that's underappreciated in the Gen 4 reactors, is the ability not only to capture the power market, but also to engage this entirely new group of industrials that have never before seen nuclear as a viable option for their decarbonization pathways. But Dow is a leader in that regard. So our very first site in the United States will be a 4-reactor site in Texas that we are building in partnership with Dow Chemical. It will be on Dow Chemical's land, and we will produce both high-temperature heat as well as electricity that will support the power needs of the site, but then also provide steam heat to Dow Chemical's nearby polyethylene facility. In total, over 500,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year will be abated from that site. That's about 75% of the total emissions from that site. And it will be the first industrial site in North America to be supported by nuclear power. This is an audacious, unprecedented thing that we are trying to do. It is not for the faint of heart, but every day we are being bold and taking those steps. And that's not our only project. That's not the only thing we're doing. Simultaneously, we are working with our other strategic partner, Amazon Web Services, maybe you've heard of them, who signed a strategic partnership with us, X Energy, in October 2024, that still to this day is unparalleled in the industry. And I think it's a perfect model of everything that we're talking about in terms of the nexus between nuclear and AI. How does that manifest itself? Well, look at this deal that we have. Google it. It has 3 main components that really set it apart from a lot of the other partnerships that you see in this industry so far. 1, in October 2024, Amazon announced a strategic investment in X Energy, the company. They liked our technology so much, they said, this is the one that we're going to back. And they led our Series C fundraise. Part 2, not only that, they set a public announcement, a forward-leaning target to build at minimum 5 gigawatts of new nuclear generation capacity in the United States by 2039 for their data centers, using X Energy's XE100 reactor as the basis for that build-out. That is 5 gigawatts. When Amazon says it's going to do something, it's going to do something. If our reactor is 80 megawatts, 5 gigawatts, that's a minimum order book of 64. 64 reactors that we are building by 2039. In addition to the 4 that we have with Dow Chemical that are under development right now in Texas. So I just wanted to give you all a quick flavor of what is going on in the United States right now on small modular reactors to demonstrate that this is not a next generation thing. This is a now thing. It is happening right now. We are making decisions here in October 2025 that will make the early 2030s a reality for the first commercial small modular reactor power plant in the United States to come online. There's a lot more I can say on all of that. These are not our only projects. We also have gone to the United Kingdom, and we've announced a 6-gigawatt pipeline with our strategic partner there, Centrica. These are real deals. These are real partners. This is skin in the game. This is project equity, project finance that we are putting towards advanced reactor projects in this world today. So I'd love to talk to you about this more. I hope it whet your appetite, at least alleviated some of the skepticism that this is a future problem, that this is a future solution, but not a current one. Come talk to us. But now I want to reserve time to sit on stage and talk with my friend and colleague, Dr. Jennifer Gordon, so that we can have a little bit more of a conversation about this.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Coming up on stage for that conversation with Miriam will be Jennifer T. Gordon. She's the Director, Nuclear Energy Policy Initiative, and Daniel B. Pullman, Chair for Nuclear Energy Policy, Global Energy Center, Atlantic Council. Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you so much. And Miriam, what an excellent presentation. I just want to kind of zoom out for a moment. You spoke so fascinatingly about the partnerships between X-Energy and Amazon, between X-Energy and Dow Chemical. And it seems like these non-traditional end users are really changing the landscape for nuclear energy deployment. Talk a little bit about maybe how you see the industry as a whole responding to some of these types of partnerships and these non-traditional companies that are suddenly interested in nuclear energy.
Totally. And first, I want to say I never pass up an opportunity to have an all-woman nuclear panel. Like, it never happens. So let's take a moment of appreciation here. Yeah, that's right. It never happens in a male-dominated industry. So I think it's an excellent question. How is the industry responding? And it is still muted. Everyone is still waiting for us to demonstrate success of the first project. So our CEO, Clay Sell, he constantly keeps us focused and distills all of our strategic goals, all of our corporate vision statements down to one goal, which is if we can't deliver the first 4 reactors for Dow Chemical, then we're done here. So success and delivery first on that site is our #1 goal, because everyone in the world is watching that site. That site will be a cogeneration site. So what we're doing with Dow in Texas is we are replacing an end-of-life natural gas asset that currently pipes steam to their nearby polyethylene facility. It's about a 2-kilometer pipe that we're going to build from our nuclear site. So those 2 gas boilers, those natural gas boilers, will be retired, and then they'll be replaced by our 4 reactors. So right now, we're starting just to procure the long lead items for that. And let me be clear, we're placing contracts now for items that won't be delivered for another 3 or 4 years. So I also want to put that in perspective for everyone about how long nuclear takes and how quickly can the vendors move and the technologies aren't ready. The designs are there, the technologies have been operating, but we are also not just we're not in this ourselves. We're in this with a network of suppliers, and we can only move as fast as the person to our left and the person to our right. So that's why strategic partnerships and industry partnerships are so important. So that's the Dow model. I'll just speak really quickly on Amazon. You know, people are watching what Amazon does very closely. If we can pull off a first project successfully with our site in Washington State, that will be a 12-reactor site, so about 960 megawatts total. All the utilities in the United States are watching that site. All of them, the big guys. Because we're not doing this just with Amazon, we have a utility partner. So it's actually a 3-way arrangement that we have with the utility, with Amazon as the major off-taker, and with us as the technology vendor. So that's a new type of negotiation that is still unprecedented in the industry. So we're trying to figure it out. But as that project in Washington State matures, we have utilities lined up afterwards that I think we're going to start seeing a domino effect, but only if we're successful on these first few milestones.
Thank you so much. We only have a brief moment, but I do want to ask you one last question. In the United States, as we all know, and especially now with the Trump administration, there has been an intense focus on domestic nuclear reactor deployment. What's the role of international civil nuclear cooperation within that context?
The reality is that every reactor, our reactor, Westinghouse's reactor, GE, Hitachi's reactor, we all have international supply chains, and we all have international expertise in our organizations. And so if we're really going to be successful in deploying the 400 gigawatts of new nuclear that the Trump administration has announced, then we need to figure out how to minimize the barriers to getting the expertise and the materials and the parts and components that we need from our partners and allies as much as possible. So those are trade barriers. Those are visa barriers. Those are technical exchanges. Those are research fellowships. Those are materials and tariffs and export licenses. All of those paperwork items that are underappreciated. How can we minimize those? Because the reality is that no one country can do this alone. So we are all in this together.
Well, I think that's a wonderful note for us to end on. And I also think it really highlights the importance of conferences like this one. So please join me in thanking Miriam.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and thank you, Miriam, for that session on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, next we have a discussion on Baraka Nuclear Plant. On stage is Mohammed El Braiki, Consulting General Manager, Emirates Nuclear Energy Company. Mr. Braiki, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to join you here for the Singapore International Energy Week. Today, I'm honored to talk about the UAE's experience introducing nuclear energy. We have delivered our flagship Baraka nuclear energy plant in Abu Dhabi, UAE, against a backdrop of changing perceptions and momentum. Around the world, we have seen a huge shift in the desire to add more nuclear energy plants to meet the huge demand for clean baseload. The demand of power AI and the data centers alone is huge, with global demand set to double by 2026. Equal to the annual power demand of Japan. We see nuclear energy as a proven way to power these technological advancements for our nation in a reliable way. I'd like to share with you some areas or key success factors how we delivered our program. We started with a policy. 2008, we've developed a clear policy for development of a peaceful nuclear energy, setting out our commitment and delivering a civil nuclear energy program to the highest standards of safety, security, transparency, and non-proliferation. Next, the UAE focused on creating a strong regulatory environment. In 2009, we've established and developed and launched the Federal Authority for Nuclear Regulator, FANR. Next, with the regulatory framework in place, the UAE announced the creation of the Emirates Nuclear Energy Company with a clear mandate to lead the development of the UAE civil nuclear sector to deliver the UAE peaceful nuclear energy program. We utilized the IEA roadmaps for the new nuclear program, and we went through many other activities in parallel to be as efficient as possible. We selected the APR 1400 technology, known for an advanced safety features and operational efficiency. At the same time, we had a reference plan that we always go back to ensure there are always simultaneous benefits and lessons learned being shared. This leads me to another key area for us, capacity building. A clear mandate from the UAE leadership was to ensure that we did not simply import technology and the manpower expertise from overseas. We needed to ensure that we have a local, trained, qualified employees that can operate and maintain those plants. Today, over 60% of our workforce are UAE nationals. And we have over 50 nationalities in the program. So we're working hand in hand together to make sure that we're operating those plants in a safely manner. We have also encouraged women to join our program, and we are proud that around 20% of our workforce are females, which is one of the highest levels of female participation in the nuclear sector. We set up a strong program management oversight organization to oversee all the works, driving principles, and this became to be one of our competitive advantages to ensure we are driving schedule and also delivering the program in a very relative cost. Another success factor is the community engagement. Right from the start, we have engaged with thousands of our community members to help them understand nuclear energy and also bust any myths that are around out there. And we have conducted more than 217 outreach programs to those communities throughout the program. Every year, we launch a public opinion poll. And every year, we extend that nuclear opinion poll, and we get a very high public acceptance rate. Last year, we were about 85% public acceptance rate, and we're going to keep our outreach program to continue that percentage and also to push it higher. The Baraka plant is now generating 40 terawatt hours per year, nearly equivalent to the annual electricity consumption of New Zealand, providing up to 25% of the UAE's electricity. This clean carbon-free energy is enough to power 16 million EVs annually. This represents the largest decarbonization effort in the UAE, positioning the country ahead of 2030 climate goals. And if you see the net zero, about 50% of the country's NDCs are being committed by Baraka. Baraka, 4 plants that we have, they're helping avoiding 22.4 million tons of CO2, which is equivalent to 4.8 cars off the road. So as I said, they're major decarbonization machines. Baraka is also delivering a wide range of economic benefits. Despite the growing demand on electricity consumption, the consumption of natural gas for power generation is at 13-year low in Abu Dhabi because of the significant contribution that Baraka is putting to the grid. Baraka 4 plants, IPR 1400, also decarbonize the energy and the industry sector, where 85% of the clean certificates that we issue are being purchased by the local industries, such as ADNOC, our Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, and also Emirates Global Aluminium. This helps them to sell their product in a premium price. I could give you an example. You've seen those nice BMWs, the i7s. All that aluminum is being sold from Abu Dhabi, powered by nuclear. And also, we're trying to get more and more clean certificates so the other industry could sell their products with a premium price. Also, during construction itself, the Baraka nuclear plant have yielded $6.7 billion to the local economy. We qualified our steel generating industry and also the cable companies. And we're happy there is a success story here that our cable company was qualified and supplied Baraka. Today, they're supplying other nuclear plants in the UK and also in Korea. Today, the UAE has added more clean electricity per capita in the past 5 years than any other nation, with 75% of this coming from Baraka. This clearly demonstrates that integrating nuclear energy into the UAE power mix and alongside growing renewable energy sources was the right decision. The Baraka nuclear energy plant offers a new model demonstrating how nuclear could be bankable with the right economic sense. That can be delivered efficiently, as we delivered our first plant under 8 years. And we've seen a tremendous lessons learned from the first unit to the second unit to the third and to the fourth. And we've seen between Unit 4 and Unit 1, there is a 40% improvement from all the lessons learned on schedule, on time, and also on manpower. As I mentioned earlier, we have seen a great momentum in the global nuclear sector and a positive shift in awareness in the role of nuclear. Also, we saw how COP28, where 31 nations signed a declaration to triple the capacity of nuclear power. And also last year, alongside the Climate Week in New York, where 14 international banks signed their commitments to help finance nuclear. In conclusion, nuclear energy is a proven technology, and the UAE is a clear example of a positive transformation that it can have on decarbonization of the grid, boosting energy security and positioning the nation to attract global tech companies looking for a clean electricity. We now look forward to offering our expertise to other nations looking to achieve their own energy security and sustainability goals. And in growing our own fleet, also in the UAE, subject to national demand requirements, as we're going through the studies. Alongside this, in parallel, we've been investing in our R&D programs, and also investing in our advanced program, which is looking after advanced reactors and SMRs. On that topic, we've already signed over 100 MOUs, and also with 16 nations, and conducted some deep dives and deep technical dives to those SMR designs. And I want to leave you with 5 takeaways. Well, number one, especially for a greenfield country to introduce a nuclear energy, will be to take a data-led decision and set a clear policy. Number two is to engage with the communities and do so continuously. Number three is to create the right safety regulatory framework with governance structure that helps and assures to engage the experienced nations and experienced organizations to set our whatever problems you could face, and also capitalize on the lessons learned they've been went through. Start your capacity building early and recognize the multi-generational lifespan of those plants. As I mentioned, those machines, the big machines of Baraka, their lifespan is about 60 years, and could be gone also to 80 years. So it's investing in the capacity building on a healthy pipeline that could come and operate those plants would be wise. Nuclear energy is not for everyone, but through clear government commitment, program oversight, and strong governance, nuclear energy is a proven, bankable technology that offers game-changing results for energy security and sustainability. With that, I end my remarks, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And of course, we'd like to have a conversation with you. Facilitating this is Jennifer once again.
Mohammed, thank you so much. That was another fascinating conversation and presentation. As you mentioned, the Baraka nuclear power plant is already making a tremendous contribution to the UAE's electricity sector. You said 25% of the UAE's electricity is now provided by Baraka, which is just incredible. One of the themes of this conference so far has been about the tremendous increase that we've seen from around the world in demand for electricity, especially from data centers and AI. Can you talk to us a little bit about the role of nuclear energy in powering some of these new use cases?
Well, thank you, Dr. Jennifer. As I mentioned, the nuclear energy, especially in Baraka, they're base load, so they are on 24/7. And at the same time, with the refueling time between 18 to 24 months, so which is a clear requirement for any tech sector. And having the energy mix that could help this would really benefit getting into that tech center. Maybe you've heard of the Stargate project in Abu Dhabi, which is going to be powered by also nuclear and powered with different energy sectors. That could really help countries to introduce such major development in AI. Another point I'd like to raise, which is how the energy mix could be benefited from here. We did a study to see equivalent to nuclear, how is the cost avoidance and revenue enablement equivalent to gas? Now, when we did the study and we put on the model the gas prices, that came up to be about $9.9 billion, which is huge. So investing in that energy mix could introduce AI and data centers, especially with the way they are designed today. They need constant, reliable power that nuclear could really bring and be a part of.
Thank you so much. And I want to go back, and I know we're almost out of time, but I want to go back briefly to something that you mentioned in your presentation, which I thought was so incredibly interesting. You said that nuclear energy is already contributing to the UAE's economy and helping other manufactured products. You mentioned ADNOC, you mentioned the Emirates Global Aluminium, almost like move up the value chain.
Yes.
Can you talk to us just a little bit briefly about that?
In the UAE, we have a sister organization called Emirates Water and Electricity Company. What they do is selling clean certificates. And 85% of that clean certificates is coming from nuclear. So when ADNOC goes and buy those clean certificates, dispatchable certificates, that is proven that they use a clean power for their production, for their operations. Similarly also for EGA, Emirates Global Aluminium. They could sell their products overseas. And by the way, the second most exported commodity in the UAE is aluminum. They've been doing great. And they could sell it with more premium prices, proving that they used a clean energy to source their operations. So they're already contracted with i7 and BMWs to sell it with a premium price. And also, we partnered with them in different occasions where they want their own nuclear plant right now to decarbonize all their operations. And we see more of this happening, not just on the industry that could decarbonize, but also to the industry of the nuclear industry itself, the supply chain. DUCAP, the cable company, is a great success story where we were engaged with them early on to qualify them to supply for a nuclear plant. And today they're exporting their cables not just in the UAE, but they're exporting it in Korea and in UK for different nuclear plants. And they're going to play another major part now for the different, the remnants that we see in the growth of nuclear industry.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. But Mohammed, congratulations again on the incredible success story of ENEC and the UAE. And please join me in thanking Mohammed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Mohammed. The next session is on from natural gas to hydrogen to ammonia, engineering the next generation of fuel flexibility. Up on stage, ladies and gentlemen, Director, Research and Development, Siemens Energy Singapore, Philip Giepel.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for EMA for organizing that amazing session this afternoon. So today I want to bring you on a little journey with me. As the title already states, I mean, coming from the natural gas era, going to hydrogen and also to ammonia in the near future. And why are we doing this? I mean, we have talked, and the speeches before me touched on the energy trilemma that we are facing. Reliable, affordable energy we had for over decades, but bringing in sustainability, this basically pushes that over the edge. And here, Siemens Energy as a technology provider can really deliver the solutions. If we now look the top two swim lines we have under control. So we know how to burn natural gas in gas turbines, and we know how CCUS works. As easy as that. The middle one, we have also that under control. Hydrogen, our gas turbines are capable of, and therefore no carbon emissions. No problem, but I want to focus a little bit on the lower two lines. And the first one, looking at e-methanol and at the e-biodiesel. And as a last one, especially HVO and RME. But let's dive into the R&D that is needed in order as a technology provider to push our gas turbines and our local technology to the next level. And here we have a rigid process. This is needed because time is moving so fast, so within what took 15 to 20 years earlier, we need to do within 5. So here we start with high fidelity models. We have rapid prototyping. In most of our facilities, we use high pressure testing, first atmospheric, then high pressure testing in order to validate the new fuels that we are facing. And then we do the test in the full engine. Here on the pictures is one of the models that we have over 200 in the APAC region installed. It's the SGT 800. It's a 60 megawatt unit. And having said all of this, I want to start sort of in the top left corner, the one to simulate. And here we really need academia to help us. So we are proud that in the region here, we work with the top 2 universities in Singapore and then also globally. So to give some benefits to that and what we are facing together when we are now moving from hydrogen, which we can do already 2025. So that's not an issue, also with local emissions. But we are now pushing the lever in another direction, and that's ammonia. And there we face 4 fundamental differences to hydrogen. It's the low reactivity. It's actually a fertilizer. It's not even defined as a fuel. We have the corrosion aspect, which we have under control in the gas turbine as well. Yeah, we are aware of that. Tick. Toxicity. This is something that we need to handle. Both when you think about decentralized plants in urban areas. And the last one is the emissions. Obviously, we can use 80s technology and can push ammonia through, but we have sky-high emissions. And with that, we need now to start with the universities, or have started, I mean, almost a decade back, with the university to deal with all of this. And I just put one technical slide on here. And this was about almost a decade back, the first simulations of an ammonia combustor, direct ammonia. We have also looked at cracking. That's much easier if you have cracked ammonia. But here we are focusing on direct ammonia combustion. And for that, here you have sort of two typical values that we look at. The top one is temperature. The bottom one is mixture fraction, which means where's the fuel. And in order to optimize that, we need the universities, or needed them in the past and still needing them, because we need to push the emissions down. Anything sort of above 250 ppm NOx is old technology. And there we are pushing the lever. Going to the oh, okay, now they are here. You can basically now see the simulations, so they are full-on 3D simulations. But now we cannot just stop with ammonia. So there you can see sort of our roadmap, near term, near target, and also the roadmap. And it is very diverse. And where does that come from? It comes from the local needs. What is produced? I look at South America. It's more the bio alcohols. I look in this region, and it is more ammonia and maybe cracked versions of it. And when I look into Europe with the gas network, it's probably hydrogen. But no one can predict that. That's why we as a technology provider look at multi-fuel options. You cannot buy an asset that is basically 20 to 30 years installed and we leave you alone. No, we will always have possibilities to cater for the fuel that is available and also viable from a power production perspective. But the closed terms, I mean, hydrogen, as I said, tick. The biodiesel like HVO, tick. 50% cracked ammonia and natural gas, not a problem. This is almost off the shelf by now. When you look ammonia, there it is the direct ammonia. Methanol, ethanol, also easier. And then obviously we roll out the fuels across the entire gas turbine chain, from sort of the smallest one around a couple of megawatts to our largest model, which is the HL class, which we're talking 0.5 gigawatt. So, and with this, sort of to just summarize, so we are aware that not one shoe fits all. So we have understood that for years by now. Basically, hydrogen, yes, it makes sense, maybe as a first fuel, but ammonia is a close second. And then you also need backup fuels. So you might want to consider in your power plant a biodiesel, like HVO, like fatty methyl ester, FEM, for example. And there we will have the solutions available for you in the future. And with that, I think I thank you, and we go towards.
Thank you, Philip. We invite you to take a seat on stage, the hot seat, if you will. And Jennifer, she's back up on stage to share her thoughts with you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Philippe, you mentioned or we've been talking a lot, I should say, about the pressure on the grid from rising energy demand. Could you say a little bit more about the regions and the industries that are driving some of this demand?
Yeah, sure. You can do it twofold. You can break it up in the regions, or you can break it up in the industries, in the sectors. So I would go sector. We have heard a lot this morning, this afternoon, about sort of the technology-driven sectors, data centers. So that we don't need to, that we do tick. But what we haven't talked about too much is the energy intense sector, the industry. Like steel was mentioned earlier, but there's also chemistry, concrete. So all of this driving energy demand up. And then comes housing. Basically housing as well as office buildings. So you need to cool them in some areas of the world. Now I work in Singapore, everything works with aircon. When I'm in Sweden, where I'm originally from, we need heating in the winter. Otherwise, we freeze quite drastically. And the third one, which wasn't mentioned at all, is the transport sector. It's the EVs. I mean, and it is a little bit depending on the region, but we have seen a rising EV demand also here in the APAC region. And that puts pressure on our utilities worldwide.
Absolutely. I think it's this drive to electrify everything. And I wanted to ask you as well, when you talk about fuel-flexible gas turbines, how can they help support this rising electricity demand?
Yeah, and here, obviously, we need to decarbonize. Going back to my first slide, it's the trilemma with the sustainability part. So we need to decarbonize those. And therefore, we have, on one hand, the fuels, but when you think a little bit wider, we need basically, we have all the renewables on one side, but when those fail, the short ones will be batteries and will be flywheels, will be mechanical power. Then you have the gas turbines, they need to be decarbonized. And all in all, so this integrated system, that will help in the long term.
Absolutely. So with the time that we have left, any closing thoughts that you want to leave our audience with, or any closing takeaways?
The closing takeaway that is, I think from my perspective, I've seen the entire sector moving so fast compared to the beginning of my career. And with modern technology driven by really resilient R&D processes, I think that then we can do it. And obviously with policies that help us to push new technologies.
Absolutely. Well, this was a great conversation and terrific presentation. Please join me in thanking Philippe.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you, Philippe. In the next session, ladies and gentlemen, on stage is Professor Alessandro Romagnoli. He is talking about the geothermal energy exploration and utilization cases right here in Singapore. Alessandro, over to you.
Thank you. Right, so good afternoon. Happy to be here. We're going to go back to school for the next 7-8 minutes. But today I would like to share with you a Singapore's perspective around the opportunity to exploit geothermal energy. So just a bit of background. I mean, what is geothermal? For those who are less familiar about it, so basically geothermal means heat energy from the earth, And the way this heat can be generated is mainly in three ways. One is with the heat coming from the inner core of the Earth, or through some decay of what we call radiogenic element presence within the rock, or through friction between rocks happening at the deeper depth. So when we talk about geothermal, probably you might think of those steam gas coming out, from the Earth, like you might see in Iceland and so on and so forth. So if that is the case, of course, you may refer to what we call conventional geothermal systems. So if you look at the slides, look at on the left-hand side, basically those are systems in which there is a presence of fluid at a high pressure and temperature, for instance, because of the vicinity of a volcanic or magmatic activity, which will generate that sort of circumstances where the heat is, and the fluids at that stage. For what it concerns Singapore, instead we are looking at what we call non-conventional geothermal system, or next generation geothermal systems, which basically entail not to geothermal potential in non-volcanic region. And when we look at that sort of non-conventional geothermal system, we distinguish between two methods to extract heat from the underground. So if you look at the picture in the middle, this is what we call an enhanced geothermal system, where you basically pump a fluid downwards, and that by means of maximizing or exploiting the permeability of the rock at a certain depth, either natural permeability or induced permeability, might be by means of fracking, we are able to extract the heat and bring it back onto the surface. So this is what we call EGS. The other one on the right-hand side, instead, what we call advanced geothermal system, which basically consists of drilling a number of pipes, literally down there, to maximize on a heat exchange with the surrounding rock. And this sort of system, although is more intensive for what it concerns the drilling aspect, it comes with less side effect when it comes to safety or other side effect with induced seismicity. So why geothermal? So if you look at the spectrum of renewables available, especially in Singapore, we know that in Singapore, the extent of renewables that we can extract has somewhat been maximized when it comes to solar PVs. And geothermal offers a different perspective because it could potentially offer a base load constant power supply, which is scalable. When it comes to the utilization of the heat, right? So you extract heat from the underground, it's very versatile. I mean, you can use this heat to either generate electricity, or for heating application, will not be the case in Singapore, or for instance, to generate chilled water or water desalination, for instance. And then if you look on the right-hand side, in the figure on the right-hand side, geothermal, amongst the other forms of renewables, it comes with one of the lowest footprint when it comes to its deployment, which of course scores pretty well in Singapore, because as we know, Singapore has land scarcity and is constrained by land availability. So why am I bringing this into the picture? Is because in 2021, we initiated the first of such kind of projects ever in Singapore. We were given a small grant to evaluate the geothermal potential in Singapore. As part of the project, what we did, we drilled 2 boreholes, 2 slim, very small in diameter, but we went rather deep, down to 1.7 kilometers. And we drilled in the vicinity of one of the hot springs in Singapore, near the Sembawang area in the northeastern part of Singapore. So now, if you look at the slide, it's pretty packed with numbers, but the main point of that slide is that if you look at that chart, what we did, we tried to compare the temperature gradient and temperature profile measured worldwide in a non-volcanic region, right, like that of Singapore. And when we compared the data that we got versus the data that were measured elsewhere worldwide, we could see that Singapore basically, I would say, is blessed by a world-class geothermal heat, with a temperature gradient within 40 to 45 degrees per kilometers, based on some of the extrapolation, which score extremely better than an average 30 to 32, 33 degrees Celsius per kilometer that we can find worldwide. And this basically, it was a sort of a surprise, and it comes as a good indication on why we want to push forward on further evaluating the geothermal potential for Singapore. This slide, again, we got the data. We want to see, hey, what we can do with it. So I mentioned before that this geothermal heat can be used for electricity, chill water production, and other use cases. So we've done the studies assessing the different ways to use geothermal. Today, I'm only sharing the one on cooling, especially looking at data center as a sort of application for the geothermal heat, because we know that data center requires a lot of cooling and power. And so if you look at that chart on the left-hand side, so what basically that chart shows you, it shows you the cost of cooling versus different type of cooling technology solution. So the dashed red line that you see, the horizontal dashed red line, it gives you an indication of the cost of the chill water tariff in Singapore, right? So that's our benchmark. So if you see the blue blocks on the left-hand side of this chart, they represent different scenarios for heat extraction using different methods for heat extraction. And as you can see, the numbers scores well below, the red line. So in fact, in some of our scenarios, we see that the geothermal could help to reduce the cost of cooling by up to 61%. And not to mention, actually, the fact that geothermal, also when it comes to the generation side, in terms of global warming potential and carbon footprint, is scored extremely, extremely low. If you compare with natural gas power plant, is a reduction of almost 90% in the carbon footprint. So what do we need? What do we need to realize this Singapore geothermal development in Singapore? A number of different levers that we need to pull. Some which are more related to get a better understanding of what is the potential, the capacity of the geothermal heat in Singapore. We should also run deep borehole campaigns. Again, this be done in a safe manner, right, which will not harm the urban setting. There is an element of technology acceleration that is happening, right, and that we will have to embrace as this comes online. And of course, since geothermal is a relatively new area or option for Singapore when it comes to the diversifying the energy mix, there is a need to basically develop a regulatory and policy framework. There is lack of talent and skills in Singapore for what it concerns the subsurface or geo-energy potential. And of course, this means that also the ecosystem, when it comes to integrating innovation, R&D, and supplier and financing, also will have to be established and come together to basically accelerate this uptake. And that's all from my side. Thank you for listening.
Prof. Alessandro, thank you very much, sir. We invite you to have a seat, and of course, Jennifer is coming up to have a conversation with you.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Alessandro, thank you so much for a great presentation. You talked about in your presentation, you mentioned that geothermal is scalable. But I want to ask you to go a little bit more in depth on that point. What are some of the ways in which geothermal can scale effectively? And are there any ingredients that are needed to allow for its scalability?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Probably that is the elephant in the room when we talk about geothermal. But like I mentioned briefly in my last slide, there is an aspect associated with the technology development, which is associated with the reduction of the cost of drilling. So when it comes to geothermal plants, the geothermal project, the bulk of the cost comes in the initial stage during the evaluation, exploration, but then actually the drilling, especially drilling in a hot, dry rock like that of Singapore. Singapore is sitting on a bed rock of granite. So you need to drill a very deep depth in a very hot environment. The conventional technology currently are showing that the costs are, quite high. So what we see that luckily we see technology evolving very nicely, very fast, actually, especially in North America and in Europe. And in fact, some of the initial reports shows that the cost of drilling could almost be halved, or even more than half, over the next 5 to 7 years. And that would help us to sort of embrace this deep geothermal opportunity and help us to scale it. Having said that, attached to that, there is also a financial and regulatory aspect that needs to be made available. The initial uptake in terms of outlay, in terms of capital, is very large. there is a risk associated as well when it comes to geothermal project. So I think there is, like you said, there's a number of ingredients that needs to come together from the technical aspect, financial and policy aspect that need to come together in order to allow for such kind of solution to be scaled up, pushed at scale. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This might be another elephant in the room, but your presentation, of course, focused very much on geothermal in Singapore. Do you think there's the potential for a regional or even a transnational approach or cooperation on geothermal?
Yes. So, again, good point. I mean, geothermal is inherently a local. It depends very much on where the heat is going to sit, and in a way that limits, the geothermal game to a local context. What we have seen happening in some other parts of the world, so what it could be transnational, it could be understanding or sharing a regulatory framework, best practices, sharing knowledge. So there is an element of sharing that could be considered, because then when it comes to the actual production of utilities, especially electricity, that could be fed into the larger, bigger picture of feeding into the national and the grid, the regional grid for Singapore. So I mean, there is an element of cooperation, and just to mention that we have been talking to a number of neighboring countries as well on how we could potentially join forces to enable this non-conventional geothermal system to move at a faster pace.
Thank you so much. And so you mentioned the regulatory frameworks. You also mentioned financial risk sharing. Are there any other policies that you think could help enable geothermal deployment?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I'm looking from a Singapore lens, for instance. So, and Singapore is a small land, very highly urbanized. So, I mean, there needs to be a better understanding on how we can enable the geothermal deployment to be done in a safe way. So I mean, there is an aspect of safety, perceived risks that at the moment is still need to be framed and clear. But the good thing is that we see a lot of such kind of projects happening worldwide, and there is a lot of learning that we could borrow from what has already been done in other parts of the world. So that's a good.
Well, I think that's a great note for us to end this conversation on. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Alessandro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Armioli, and of course, thanks, Jennifer, for managing that. The next session, ladies and gentlemen, discusses about using AI to power up efficient and resilient energy systems. Presenting on stage is Emmanuel A. San Andres, Senior Analyst at the Policy Support Unit, PSU, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Secretariat, right here in Singapore. Andres, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for inviting us to speak on this matter. I also want to thank the Energy Markets Authority for your wonderful organizing and hosting of this event. So you might have heard of APEC in the news recently. APEC means Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. We're an intergovernmental organization of 21 member economies around Asia and the Pacific. We're in the news lately because there's our leaders are currently meeting in Gyeongju in Korea. So that's the reason why President Trump, President Xi, and Prime Minister Lawrence Wong are in Korea right now. So the APEC Secretariat is based in Singapore, and I'm working with the Secretariat on the research arm for that. But what you might not be familiar with is that APEC happens throughout the year. It's not just a leaders meeting. There are many sectoral meetings happening throughout the year. And what I'm going to be presenting today is related to something we prepared for the energy ministerial meeting that happened in Busan last August. So I know I'm the last speaker for this event, and I'm the one separating you from dinner, so I'll try to make this faster. And one advantage of speaking the last is that a lot of the points I needed to make or want to make have been made by previously. So I don't think I have to sell you a lot more on the benefits of AI in the energy value chain. As some of the previous speakers said, there's a lot of potential for AI for use for sustainable energy development, such as in grid management and resilience. It is especially important in the integration of weather-sensitive renewable energy sources into our energy grids. It will also help mitigate climate change and extreme weather events and very important in load forecasting and planning to make sure that our grid systems are stable and our frequencies are within manageable levels. It will also help improve transmission capacity and efficiency. An estimate from the IEA says that just applying AI on current transmission capacity can give an additional 175 gigawatts of capacity, which is very important for developing economies as their energy demand increases. It can also be applied in remote sensing that can help with infrastructure maintenance and management. And we've also heard earlier that it can help with building in buildings and smart cities and efficient energy use in industries such as cement, chemicals, and steel. But of course, AI itself consumes a lot of energy. But a study by Nicholas Stern et al. Just this year says that it can potentially result in a net reduction of carbon of 3 to 5 gigatons per year. So to put that into context, that's about 20% of the total CO2 emissions of the APEC region every year. But applying AI in energy is not just as simple as flicking a switch and then it will be there. There are many things that need to happen before we can even flick that proverbial switch. So when we were thinking of what messages do we need to be telling energy ministers in this context, we thought of what are the enablers of AI in the use of energy systems. So first of all, there are some of the technical enablers. Basically, we need good data. AI application and efficiency and is only as good as the data that is fed into it. So we need clean, reliable, and context-relevant data. And we also need data interoperability, consistency, and real-world relevance. So we need to be having these systems and capabilities in place to generate and use this data for application into AI innovations. We also need skills, and these are a lot of skills development. And I'm not just talking about skills among people who are developing AI, but also having AI literacy and data engineering and skills and integrating them into energy skills, risk, and policy skills. So the people who are running our energy systems, like systems operators, technicians, and their roles will change from what they're doing now. There will be a lot more importance in the use of data, generating that data, using that data, and also applying AI in their role. Our regulators and the monitors for our energy systems will also need to be aware of what are the risks and vulnerabilities of AI and the benefits of these as well. And also policymakers up to the ministerial level will have to be AI literate if we are going to apply this in our energy systems. And then there are also the institutional enablers that are very important before we apply it. We need AI to be trustworthy. That means making sure that it's reliable, explainable, accountable, and transparent. So we need the government's framework, standards, and regulations to make sure that this happens. We need to let our stakeholders, the people who are going to be using these energy systems, know what the technology is. We need to make sure that digital inclusion is in place. AI cannot exacerbate already existing digital divides in terms of access to infrastructure, data, and skills. And also in the context that most of the climate-vulnerable communities tend to be the poorest communities, then we will need AI, and we can use AI to roll it out in these communities first. At the same time, rolling it out to the poorer communities and vulnerable communities will give us more data that will help AI train better in more contexts than what are now being used in mainly developed economy circumstances. And when we're talking about data, we also need clear, harmonized regulatory frameworks and standards. I think this was discussed a while ago. We first need to get that data, but we also have to make sure that that data is able to talk to each other. We can share that data between economies and across economies. And so we need to have those frameworks in place as well. So in terms of policy considerations, this was again in the context of an APEC in a regional meeting. So a lot of our policy discussions were aimed towards regional cooperation and integration in this matter. So basically three major things. First, regional cooperation on data harmonization and skills development. So economies need to work together to share their experiences and also make sure that their data is able to be used in a way that fits within their economy's governance and regulations. We could work together towards developing regulatory sandboxes. We can start small, learn from these experiences, and also then scale up and then share what lessons we need from them. We need to be careful about this rollout because it's one thing to use AI to make haikus and limericks, but it's another thing when an AI could potentially cause rolling blackouts. And then third we know there's already a lot of investment in AI innovation, but economies can also contribute towards this. As was mentioned a while ago, AI has a strong potential in helping address our climate change challenges. And the urgency of the climate change means that just relying on market forces may not be fast enough to let us reach net zero by 2050. So some investment in this case could help move that along. So we invite you to take a look at the paper if you have time, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Emmanuel. And of course, we're going to have that conversation with you right now. Jennifer, over to you, please.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, good to meet you. Emmanuel, first of all, thank you so much for joining us, especially during APEC week. We feel incredibly privileged that you chose to spend this week here. One of my takeaways from this conference so far, and I think we heard this said on Monday morning during the plenary panel, is that AI obviously needs a lot of energy, but energy also needs AI. How can industry help to make sure that average educated people who might not work in the industry really understand that AI can help energy rather than just being a taker and a user of energy?
So I think a lot of the innovations that are happening now are already contributing to that. And if all these innovations on energy efficiency and grid management come into force, and also not only in energy systems, but also in energy use in industry, in food production, in transportation, we can expect a lot of net reduction in carbon. Of course, you need some energy to feed into AI, but there's also a lot of reduction there. And as some estimates say, it could be up to 20% of what the region is already producing every year in terms of carbon CO2. That's more carbon dioxide than, let's say, what Japan produces in a year. So that's 2 to 3 gigatons of CO2 is a lot per year. But also, I think private sector could help explain this technology more. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding what it is, how it works, what kind of data it uses, and also how it's going to benefit society at large, and also privately how it benefits the firms. So I think a lot of that explanation, and when we're talking about AI governance, AI trustworthiness, there's a need for that transparency to make sure that the stakeholders, and people understand exactly what they're getting into and how it's going to benefit them.
Thank you so much. So, as I mentioned before, I work on nuclear energy policy, and in that space, we talk a lot about the potential for AI to help to streamline and to speed up the regulatory processes. Are you seeing those kinds of conversations beyond the nuclear energy sector? Are there other energy sources that are looking at AI with the same hopefulness?
So some of the discussions among energy policymakers is the rollout of AI throughout the entire energy value chain. And in terms of in looking into how do they need to monitor them and regulate them. And it's really about the skills of the regulator, making sure that the regulators, the policymakers, and the strategists understand the role of AI, the vulnerabilities of AI, as well as the power of AI. It's hard to regulate something if you don't exactly know what it does. You have to be able to know where the risks are. Are there new risks that you haven't thought of before that will now enter into the system? So I think it's really it's a new technology, and it's more about people not knowing how to deal with it that might be causing some apprehension. But I think education transparency will help in a long way in that.
Let me ask you two more quick questions. So this week, obviously, the APEC meetings in Gyeongju. Are there any outcomes on AI specifically, whether it's policy or investment, that you're hoping for from these APEC meetings? And my second piece of the question is, 1 year from now, we're all back at SIEW here in Singapore, and where do you hope that the AI field will be by then?
So a lot of the AI discussions in APEC, Korea is the host of APEC this year. That's why they are in Korea to meet. And a lot of the discussions on AI happened a few months ago around energy ministerial and digital economy ministerial meetings. These are around August and September. And they did have some declarations on how to cooperate on AI and digital economy issues, including in energy. And so when leaders meet, I mean, they will be discussing those, and they may mention those earlier conversations. And hopefully by next year, when we meet again, that has borne fruit in terms of projects, clear ways forward, some of those knowledge sharing that I mentioned. So in APEC, we have a very diverse group of economies. We have the United States, China, Japan, as well as the Philippines, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, who may still need a bit more help in terms of this area. And so a lot of those conversations, those sharing of technology, of knowledge and know-how will help the region along in applying this.
Well, thank you so much. This was so fascinating, so helpful, I think, in helping all of us understand AI just a little bit better. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but please join me in thanking Emmanuel.
Thank you kindly, Jennifer, and thank you, Emmanuel, as well. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are still here, I'd just like to do a proper closing to the day. We've come to the end of the SIEW TechTable. And of course, we certainly hope you found today's exchanges and the very many pitches that we had right here enriching for all of you. Not to forget to see all of each other and us at SIEW Connects, and this reception is on this evening from 6 p.m. onwards. Location, Milos, at the shops at Marina Bay Sands. Again, that happens from, bless you, and that happens from 6 p.m. onwards. Not to forget to bring your badges with you, and that, of course, will allow you to gain entry into the space. Singapore International Energy Week, ladies and gentlemen, for today has come to the end. We will see you next year. And, of course, we'd also like to say thank you for your participation in the Singapore International Energy Agency Forum. My name's Ravi. It ends my time right here taking you through the session in 2025. We'll see you back. I will see you back, rather, in 2026 at SIEW. Thank you. Have a great week. Thank you.